How's it going, everyone? And welcome to a Fernless episode again, as you will notice by the empty stool of No Excuses on YouTube.com with your favorite show hosts, Art Still.
And we'll sell, and we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week. And we are missing our third leg again because he, at the very last minute, had a work thing that came up, and he said that he will be late, like very late. So I don't know precisely when he will be back, if he will be back, but he estimated sort of back end of the show type of time.
Yep. So we started 20 minutes late because that got dropped on us last minute, and I had to rush to get everything together. So, that's the wrong thing. There we go. So, on the
But
show.
yes, nevertheless,
Yep,
if
go
you'd
ahead.
like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com. You can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in our Discord server by clicking on the link that will be provided in the show description underneath the show archive on YouTube. Stick done.
Yep. On the show today, we're going to be doing some good old Rival Wings, and hopefully we'll be able to keep going throughout the show. Uh,
Depending on what queue times are like.
yeah, because as the evening gets on, just the problem with Rival Wings is fun, and after a few games, it starts to click, and you know what to do, and it's all that's nice and stuff. But there is no incentive at all to do Rival Wings outside of Tombstone time. So you can almost never get a Rival Wings match if it's not Moogle Tombstone time. So that is and despite this being the game with many much easier things to do that would take less brain work, there just ain't any good tombstone farming things this go around for PvE stuff. They're just not
Well,
there.
unless you want to spam Praetorium.
Yeah, I mean, unless you want to spam alliance raids, you're not getting many tombstones per minute. So
At least it's all the Alliance raids. So if you just happen to really like them, you can do them. Or if you're farming like your two big pieces or whatever.
yeah, I bet there's copied factory runs going again. So so yeah, these take about 6 to 12 minutes, depending on how insane everybody's acting. Usually they last around 8 to 10. I rarely see
And
them go all the way to time.
And for the record, I have no idea how to play.
Right. So the audience doesn't know how to play either. So to give a quick breakdown. Oh, I got my side saddle Chocobo.
Oh my goodness, for some reason, there is no longer a mounting button on my bars. Where's the mount? Where's mount? where's my where's my mount button? Mount button.
So at the start of a Rival Wings game, you wait up here until the timer ends, and you will notice two lanes, and they act just like lanes in every other MOBA. Creeps will spawn from your base and walk towards the enemy towers and their base if their tower is gone. Except when these creeps get to the towers, they self destruct and do damage to it. And the damage they do ain't super great. It's about the damage one missile will do to a tower when we get to talking about the mechs. In the middle there, where we're going to go at the start, is a whole bunch of juice scattered around the lower level, and you need to collect 50 of them that to summon a mech that you can either walk. Well, basically, you can just walk them down the lanes because they have a lot of places they can't go on the map, and we'll talk about those when we get there. And after we get the bit of juice here, so we'll just grab any juice on the way to mid. Usually, what happens is you go to mid. So right up there now is a ceruleum tank. So the team that gets that, if you win mid and control it when the train comes, uh, the entire team will get 50 juice. Now the way juice works is each party has its own separate juice counter that they use to summon mechs. So every party in the alliance that wins mid gets 50 juice. So that's enough to summon a mech right out the gate. So this is a fairly good get. It's the second best one you can get in mid. This guy not dead. So this is me playing ninja here. You may see some people doing the bum rush strat because they're just trying to get as many games as possible. Right now, if you lose, you get 6 Moogle Tombstones. If you win, you get 10. So this is not even close, but it's not even close. This is the best tomes per minute up here. All right, these 4 are going to hold this. Cool. Other objectives on the map are the mercenary, who you'll see ready northern forces for deployment on the right side. I have it on the right side of my screen right now. That means the mercenary will show up in the north. He'll be wherever his spawn point is on the north, and the team that does the most damage to him will recruit him to come and push a single lane for you. And he does a ton of damage to buildings. So, and he has a good chunk of HP. So you definitely want to try and get him moving. I'm gonna try and hop in a mech before they claim that train, but I don't think I'm going to succeed. So I'm getting in the oppressor right now. I'm just going to march it down a lane. And what the oppressor does is the oppressor will do damage to towers and not players. The cruise chaser is the opposite. It will do damage to players and not towers. And BJ can do everything. BJ being Brute Justice. And that's Rival Wings. You try and kill the enemy towers to get access to their base, and whichever team kills the enemy team's base first wins. We have a oppressor shooting players. Do not be this guy. Don't be Theseus Cujo. In fact, don't be this far up like I am either. I don't know why I'm following this guy. If you're in an oppressor and there's just a bunch of dudes, you wait for your cruise chasers to come clean them out, or you wait for your team to show up and come clear them out. And you don't waste energy shooting players, because every shot is valuable. And you will be enemy priority target number 1 to everybody that knows what an oppressor does on the enemy team. Why is he standing by the tower shooting? Oh, goodness. So, yeah, this is the reason you lose Rival Wings, is this guy back, our Theseus Cujo back here, who doesn't know what he's doing with the oppressor. The oppressor is the most important mech. If you don't know what you're doing, don't get in the oppressor. It ain't hard, but if you're doing what he's doing, you're not going to be making a whole lot of progress. So yeah, and that's Rival Wings. I'll point out stuff if some fun, interesting stuff happens in the game, but otherwise, I think we just jump into your week, Vaul.
Right. I don't know what's going on here, so I'm gonna get toasted. Yes. So my week. What did I do during my week? My week at work was quite busy. We have lost a key member of staff to the government money printer, as usual. Like, I just can't compete, man. Can't compete with that money printer. It's too hard. Don't know what to do. But yeah, so I was quite busy, and I'm going to be moving back into busy mode pretty consistently going forward as a result of this. Like, our numbers are just going to be down, and there's not really anything to be done about it. Oh, and we're getting shellacked on tower.
No, we killed their
There's
tower.
nobody. I know, but their entire team, it feels like their entire team is sitting here.
No, I'm marching on their base to fire rockets at it.
Yeah, anyway. Oh my goodness. I'm so bad at this. But yeah, as a result, I didn't get to do really anything that I had sort of hoped, but you can't really do much about that at this point. But yeah, second week of whatchamacallit, of the Atrahasis arc in Blue Archive. I've cleared the entire shop. I didn't do any of the challenge quests, largely because I couldn't work out what to do, and I was too low a level for most of them. So yeah, it's been a bit of a wash there, but that's just the way it is sometimes. But yeah, that's coming to an end this coming week, and it will open up the last chapter of that story, which is the Phrenapites raid. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that works. The other what's the train again? I forgot what the train is about.
It's got Gobby Juice. You don't care.
Right, I ignore it. Okay.
For the record, Gobby Juice restores the limit break bar of everybody on the team. However, after the PvP rework, when everybody's limit break bar charges at the speed of light, it is totally and completely useless.
I see. But yeah, so not really much change on the Blue Archive front. Oops, so that's the wrong button. But yeah, I did roll and got Nagisa, who I had been hoping to get, which is probably the last character that I'm aiming for until. Is it worth attacking towers yourself? I don't even know what the scale of damage is here.
If you've got a bunch of people at the tower, yeah, go for it and help add to the damage. But when you're super alone, not really.
Right. There's a couple people here, but not a lot.
Yeah, if they're punching the tower, punch it with them. You're not going to do a colossal amount. Oppressors do like 8 or 9% per missile. I can escort this DJ in this. There we go. I got him.
I'm.
Hang on, I'm trying to kill a mech.
He won't die. Why won't he die?
Old bad oppressors, the bane of my existence.
Well, to be fair, there's a pretty even chance that it's going to be your team or their team that gets the bad oppressors. So it's like not really any bias there. But that seems to be this entire game mode just turns on that. Which is the guy who gets more bad oppressor pilots?
Or bad BJs. Like our BJ over there is sitting there flamethrowing people instead of killing the base that has half health. We have an oppressor in mid.
Is he firing missiles at people?
You can hit the base if you walk up the ramp there, but it's really finicky. So he either really knows what he's doing, or he really doesn't.
Is it at all profitable for me to be farming creeps over here?
You're stopping the push from making its way to our base and getting us juice, because when you get the killing blow on a creep, you get some juice.
I see.
Not a lot of juice, but you get some juice and you stop the push.
Right. We took the tower down at least.
Yep, me and the BJ are coming. Following the mark.
But yeah, so holding pattern for Blue Archive. Got Nagisa. Writing on her Bond event is just as bad as everybody says. It feels really unfair if you're a fan of her rather than a fan of Mika, who got some of the best Bond event writing. So Jimmy's slightly rustled. Not really anything to be done about that. That was probably not the best time to initiate on that Dragoon, but he went down anyway, so I'm going to call it a win.
I see you. I'm trying to help you. I'll help you kill this white mage. Oh, okay. I couldn't get to him. And ta-da, free 10 Moogle tomestones for 10 minutes.
Right. Well, if we put a pause on the next one so that I can organize my thoughts, since I'm very new at this, so I don't know what I'm doing. Oh man, I did almost no damage.
Okay.
Took quite a bit of it, only died twice. But
your job is to stun people if you're a warrior, it's not to kill people.
Yeah. Well, I've been trying to do that, but people don't seem to want to capitalize on it for some reason. Right, so let me organize my thoughts. Okay, so yeah, Nagisa's Bond writing is really bad. I don't know why it's this bad. Her events are just all about her drinking tea, which is just like, well, yes, you're playing into the grotesque flanderization of her character, which is not really how she's portrayed in story at all. Like, I know it's a meme that she's never seen without a teacup in hand, but and it's also a meme because she had a tea table and snacks dragged all the way down to the catacombs when she was commanding the army of Trinity down there. But generally speaking, I think it would have been nice if there'd been some character building of some kind, as opposed to just sort of blind, let's do the T joke, not once, but multiple times over and over. And that Bond story doesn't lead anywhere at all. It's just kind of frustrating, really.
Yeah,
I asked you the next one so that I could organize my thoughts, because it's too hard for me to play something completely new
Oh,
and
did
talk at
I?
the same time.
You can decline it. I was hovering over the button and mashed it.
But well, that's completely smashed my train of thought in and of itself. But her performance as a unit is fairly solid, especially if your roster leans extremely red heavy like mine, since she provides a lot of strong debuffs for red. So she's sort of like she's sort of like a force multiplier version of Moe, in that she's got like it's a single template. Hers is a circle rather than Moe's rectangle, but it's a debuff as well as a reasonable amount of damage. And I sort of like her little animation when she does it as well. It's kind of cute. But the the performance I've not really been able to test very effectively, though, since most of the battles in the current event are they're sort of school based and rather than color based. So I haven't really looked. She does buff Trinity students particularly, as well as buffing red students, but I've basically not seen the red aspect of it play out because of the event being mostly neutral creeps or blue armor creeps. But yeah, she seems to be performing okay, and is not like one of those picks who you sort of bench because her performance isn't great. I would say her performance is not as universally applicable as what's her name? All of a sudden can't call her name to mind. The dog girl who becomes a cheerleader. Hibiki?
There you go.
I don't remember.
I'm
Hibiki.
sure. Yeah, that's right.
She's not Nagisa's not as universal as Hibiki, like in her actions. So she's sort of like, if Hibiki is the waiver character, then Nagisa's more like Merlin, like not nearly as flexible and very very one color focused.
Yeah, Hibiki's just flat crit damage all the time, right?
I think so. Whereas Nagisa's like very red bias, very Trinity bias. So if you like fielding Trinity School, specifically, like in some there is an advantage to doing so, like the Arc of Atrahasis event, or if you field a lot of red units like I do, like my main damage team is red. Like if you leave Mika the Broken out of the calculations, my red team is probably my best team against neutral as well, excluding Mika, because Mika is an anomaly. I don't know why Mika is the way she is. My goodness. So yeah, the next major key role I think is New Year's, because New Year's Kyoko is extremely good from a meta perspective as well. She's sort of a Nagisa for blue, I believe. Yeah. Don't know when New Year's is going to be, because the Blue Archive accelerated schedule for the West is a bit, I don't really understand. So I don't understand the schedule. But yeah, I'm in it for the story more than anything. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm not too worried about meta roles or anything. I've put together enough pyroxenes for sparking Kyoko anyway, so no needs to worry about that. I didn't get terribly lucky on the Nagisa banner. I had to pull 100 in order to get her, but well, that's better than pulling 200, I guess. And being that she's a support, it's not as important to keep pulling for additional LFs.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can usually get away with it because the impact on total team power comes mostly from their abilities, not from their stats. Although stats, it's not like the stats are meaningless. They do contribute to the striker stats, but it's not as big of an effect as, say, it would be for an actual striker's damage or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I've cleaned out the current event shop. I have with a little bit of waste because I was I was often in a rush in the morning when I'm trying to just deplete the stamina, move on because I've got things to do. Um, but yeah, that I'm sort of putting my stamp on that event as done, and I am super dry on clipboards right now.
Yeah.
Don't know what I'm going to do. Most of my characters are about 10 levels behind my account level now because I can't keep them up basically due to the amount of stamina that I spammed on this current event because I stayed on top of my stamina instead of letting it cap. Since there's an major story event going, I'm like, well, I might as well go on this one. Even though I don't do pyroxene's refreshes, I still ended up blowing out my gap between my account level and my character's levels pretty significantly. So my account level is now 72, but most of my characters are sort of like 60 to 64, and I just don't have the EXP to push them any higher than that.
Yeah. It's nice that the erosion uh, events in this event give you a lot of clipboards, but it's not enough. Man,
Nowhere near enough. My goodness.
it's I think I have like a set of 10, maybe 15, 10 to 15 characters that are about 2 levels behind my account level. And everybody else is at least 10 levels below my account level.
I don't even have anywhere near that. Like, I think I've got about 4 characters that are sort of like within 5 levels of my account level, and everybody else is like 10 plus away. Most of like fully half of my roster is about 35 away.
Yeah, I attempted to help the problem by doing a few of the cheap refreshes on the triple drop for the clipboard. Uh, what you call it? Whatever the is it not a bounty, not a commission, the other one.
Commissions.
Oh, is it
It is commissions, isn't it?
commissions? Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it is commission.
It's bounty, scrimmage, and commission.
Yeah. So when those were at triple drop during the anniversary, I dropped some cheap refreshes, and that got me a little bit of gas in the tank to level up some characters. But it ran out really fast.
Yeah, I just don't have a good roster to deal with commissions, so I basically can't pass any of the ones that would drop clipboards good enough to justify the investment of AP. So,
The
or stamina.
MVP of getting those done was friggin' swimsuit Hifumi and her tank.
I have her, but she's nowhere near. Like, I could use her to get clipboards. However, I need clipboards to get her level high enough to get clipboards. So
Yeah,
I'm sort of stuck in a catch-22 with her.
yeah. I
But
was keeping her not fully leveled up, but in the not left in the dirt section of my character roster. And then I had an idea when when I was running into trouble trying to do the ones that I was way under leveled for at the time. I'm like, wait a minute, this tank has a swimsuit girl with her that might be able to help me.
yeah, that's really the sort of character that you need in order to do those high level ones. Is a character who is able to put out additional damage for a long period of time, and the support tanks are just really good for that, generally speaking,
Yeah,
because you get a lot of time out of them.
and she's on color for that. The enemies are piercing weak, and she's piercing.
Well, I mean, isn't Hot Springs Chirino also on color for that?
Possibly.
I also lack regular Chirino, who's good for that as well. So good for clearing waves. So I don't have very many good yellow wave clearers. Like I've just got the ones that everybody has, like Momoi and what's her name, Nonomi, and those ones. I've just got sort of like the bargain basement yellow clearers, and that's sort of like you shoot your wad pretty quickly there, and then you've got nothing.
Chirino
And if the
actually at the time wasn't good enough to use on the team that I cleared it with because she could not do enough damage to kill the mini boss
actually
tier
kill,
ones. Yeah, and if you can't kill with whatever you use, you're just gonna get mobbed. Nanomi could,
yeah,
but not Chirino.
yeah. Well, the thing is that Nonomi the Nanomi's damage sort of comes in two parts though. So
Yeah.
you end up with a situation where, oh well, if they get too close after the first pass, they might get missed by the second due to being at the narrow end of the cone. So you have to time it just right to get good mileage out of Nanomi. She's just harder to use rather than say Momoi, who her damage comes up front in the one cone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't have a good team for that. I have to spend some sort of time tinkering with it. But it's only like the case for that for doing commissions is only strong during triple drop, and is like there's a weaker but reasonable case to make during double drop, but during single drop it's just a waste of AP as far as I can tell.
Yeah, you get so little for the AP you invest. Even at double drop, it's not worth it. At triple drop, it's probably still not worth it unless you're just absolutely starving like we are for
Yeah,
EXP.
I think we're in that stage though, right? Where we're really sensitive to the amount of EXP we've got, and I mean you sort of forgot about it, but I was still sort of midway in that particular period back when they took Pinecone away from us. In that I was sort of like hovering near max level, but not there. So I was still having characters constantly chasing max level.
Yeah,
Whereas you were in that comfortable position where your your account level is no longer actively running away from your character levels.
yeah, I would get hard walled by the EXP cap for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. Every time there was a new level cap increase, where I could just accrue all the EXP in that time and let it sit there. But yeah, I've been much more okay since they just decided to take Pinecone away from me. With just doing random refreshes if I just feel like it. If it's the cheap refresh for the day, I don't even think about it. I'll do the cheap refresh because they may just take it all away.
Yeah, it's just you can't really afford to take it that seriously. However, according to Nexon's quarterly reports, growth in Blue Archive is really coining money for them.
Wonder how much of that is
Uh,
Pinecone died.
if you take the Reddit community's opinion on the matter, which you should do very carefully, because number one, they're a Reddit community, and number two, they're a Blue Archive community, which there's a lot of baggage there. I'm just gonna say, they have definitely noticed a significant influx of people to the Blue Archive player community since Pinecone was taken away, because it was viewed by a lot of people as like the next best thing in gacha stories. Like the presentation quality is significantly lower than Pinecone, but the writing quality, in my opinion, and the opinions of a lot of people, is significantly higher.
Yeah,
Like I liked the Pinecone story a lot, but it was very simple. It was very shallow. There were lots of moving parts to it, and in all likelihood, it would have gotten more complex as it grew into its own over time. But Blue Archive's writing has just been very good from the start. Even though, like all gachas, it gets off to a slow start, you can sort of see that slow start is all about laying groundwork for later.
yeah, and
Like
they've
if
been
you even if you look at foreclosure task force, like what does foreclosure task force do? Well, it lays down two extremely key pieces of information. Number one, that Shiroko is disproportionately powerful for compared to the average Kivoto student, and that this has gone largely unnoticed. Number two, the same is true of Hoshino. Like there's this massive power anomaly in this backwater school, and this is going to definitely play a significant part later. But but yeah, they know what they're doing with their writing, or so it seems. And they've managed to sort of have, if anything, they've got an even more exquisite balance of comedy and drama than Pinecone did. Because you don't in Pinecone they really sort of forget to be funny a few times when they're trying to be dramatic. Whereas they never seem to quite forget it all the way in Blue Archive. Like the fact is that the people involved in the story are goofy, and they act goofy even in serious situations, but it doesn't feel forced. It
uh,
feels like, well, this is just who they are. They're not really the most mature of people, and so they will behave in this way sometimes.
yeah. Every single girl in that school is in those schools is mentally damaged. So there,
Yeah, which
but
there has to be some kind of plot point. I don't know
yeah, like
whether or
there,
not they'll ever resolve it, or whether they'll leave it permanently up in the air for speculation as to how exactly does this society function, because they all talk about having grown up, but none of them have parents.
yeah, when you got
I mean, they mention parents from time to time, much in the way they do in Pinecone, but it's never really explained. Like, for instance, Nonomi is from a wealthy family, but why is her family wealthy? Like, who is paying her credit card bill?
yeah,
Adults are supposed to be a extreme rarity in Kivotos for whatever reason, to the point where if you are one, it's constantly commented on.
yep,
But yeah. Anyway, lots of interesting bits and pieces there with that story. FGO is just kicked off their summer event for the year now, which is extraordinarily silly. It's basically it's treasure hunting in the Caribbean for summer this time. Not really for any good reason that anybody can discern, but being that it's treasure hunting in the Caribbean, Teach gets to play a very big role. And he's still Teach. Definitely still Teach.
I don't like Teach. Even when they're trying to make jokes with Teach, none of them have landed for me in the events I've seen.
Well, the thing is that you've really only seen the events where he's at his weakest, because they really find their feet with him a bit later. And this is why so much of the fan base calls him Brobeard, because he's one of the characters who sort of, he's not a perfect exemplar because he is a joke character, but he is one of the characters who exemplifies the weird dichotomy that is a servant, in that he is one of the characters who is adapted to modernity quite effectively, and has his own, things that he likes about the modern world and so on and so forth. And this makes it very easy for the player character in universe to relate to him and see him as a peer. But he's also chaotic evil, and this will rear its head from time to time because he's still a pirate, and he's being that he is a heroic spirit. It is sort of like baked into him to act in a certain way, and one of those ways is to be piratical. Like, he does not, for instance, see the problem with shooting somebody who he's just annoyed with.
I thought you were going to say torrenting stuff on LimeWire, but okay.
I think he's probably too canny to pirate stuff by torrenting it on LimeWire, because everybody knows the only thing you can download from LimeWire is viruses. But although, to be fair, when I needed to check something in a tabletop reference book that I didn't have a way back when, I would usually find it on LimeWire. But yeah, that was a long time ago. Anyway, is LimeWire still a thing? Can you still get LimeWire?
I don't know. I said it because it's really old.
But yeah, the story event has more or less not distinguished itself in any particular way as being, special in any particular sense, and I don't really expect it to. It's a summer event. Summer event's job is to just be dorky. The average, I'm only at the start of the event, but it seems like the average difficulty is in line with most summer events, which is to say it's not particularly high, meaning that my Melucine comp can basically murder everything with very little effort, which I'm perfectly fine with.
LimeWire was bought and changed into an AI company as a present.
Does that actually mean anything? Everybody has an AI company now.
No, it doesn't. I'm not clicking that link because the sketch is crap. But that's what the Wikipedia page says.
I don't really think that I'm going to roll on any of the banners this time, largely because I just sort of don't need to. Like, there are some characters that I like somewhat, like Anastasia, that I could roll for their summer versions, but they're also, like, my roster's now at the point where even if I like Anastasia, there's not the interaction between copies of the same character the way there is in, say, Pinecone or Blue Archive, where getting a second version of them will allow you to slightly power up your primary one. But so it would be a case of rolling for characters that I know that I'm just not going to use, because Anastasia is an arts archer, and basically there's no room for arts archers in the world once you've got Summer Jean and Summer Artoria. They're just completely redundant. You don't need any more of them, because what's like Summer Jean is such a complete package that you basically don't need anybody else. She's got a massive battery, not quite the biggest, but massive battery, 40%. I think it's 40%, or is it 30%? Could be either. And she's got an arts buff to help her looping. She's got Star Gen. She's got AoE damage. She's got Noble Phantasm power up. She's got I think she's got invincibility on top of that. Basically, she's an extraordinarily good arts archer. And Summer Artoria, they keep buffing her for some reason, despite her being a premier single target arts looper. They buffed her again in JP just recently, so now she's got a battery, implying she even needed it.
Dear.
Yeah, rolling for Summer Anastasia, while she's cute and all, it's not really necessary. She's not high enough on my list of preferred waifus for me to go out of my way for her. Summer Kama's on the list, but Summer Kama's niche overlaps almost exactly with Space Ishtar. Not quite exactly. There are situations where Space Ishtar is better, and Space Ishtar is more flexible generally, but being that Space Ishtar can also be used with Double Koyan Skya and Oberon. Yeah, Summer Kama does have her niche, charmable enemies, especially, where she does a massive amount of damage, class agnostic in most situations, being that she's an Avenger. But I don't think that my need to fill that niche is sufficiently strong that I should go out of my way to roll for her either. And I don't really think that there are any other standouts to me in that particular set. So yeah, but when I looked at the banner schedule the other day, there just really isn't much left in the game for me to roll on. I've pretty much got most of what I want now. There's just a handful of things that could shore up my roster. Like, there's an open question still whether I roll for Summer Okita Alta, because Summer Okita Alta is a really strong quick saber, AoE saber for looping. But quick looping is just basically kind of on the back burner right now until the second version of Skadi comes out, the Summer Skadi, who is basically regular Skadi again, except now you have another one. Not really how they should have tried to save Quick, but it is what it is. Kind of disappointing is mainly what it is. But yeah, Quick, the bloom has sort of fallen off Quick's flower at the moment. There's not really much to be done about it either. But yeah, there's not really much else left to roll on. There's a couple of major meta breakers that will come out in the future, and some that people thought would be meta breakers that turned out not to be. Until basically a year from now, when Summer Ibuki comes out, the meta is basically going to be set in stone. There's not going to be any significant perturbations to it, and your ability to pull off complex strats will just basically depend on your CE spread, and I don't have a lot of key CEs. Like, I don't have Super Scope, I don't have Gura Gura Poster Girl, I don't have a lot of these things that you need in order to do really complex strats. So yeah, I'm just going to be doing, normal middle of the road strats for the next year, and the perturbation that comes in a year's time will be Summer Ibuki, whose contribution to the meta is just being overpowered, basically. And so she's basically functionally a berserker version of Melusine in execution. So she straight up power creeps Summer Musashi, and pretty much just distorts the game around her if she gets paid attention to by the devs. So I hope they never do. If they were ever to pick Summer Ibuki as the baseline for what a player can do, the entire game would break down. So hopefully they never do that. Summer Merlin was basically a wash. Didn't change anything about the meta because you're better off using Castoria 99% of the time. She was better for slow play, but even if you get forced from fast play to slow play in arts, usually your fast play team can manage slow play long enough to finish out the battle. So there's really no real need for Proto Merlin at all. But
But she's Merlin.
yeah, there's basically
but not a Nikki boy.
she's a thought though.
I know, but you think that'll stop the players? This is this is why they released it.
The thing, well, you see, the thing with regular Merlin is that he's actually got a humongous number of fans as a husbando. I don't know why. He gets crapped on by most of the cast, but the female fans really like him. But yeah.
Oh, I have found the perfect picture to describe the Blue Archive Reddit, and I've dumped it in live show chat.
That's a thing.
Incredibly accurate.
Well, for Hanako, certainly.
And the Blue Archive Reddit in general.
But yeah, yeah, so I don't know. I wonder if this is what's sort of behind the player base's lassitude on the JP server, is that there's basically no perturbations to the gameplay anymore after this point. It's pretty much fixed. There's only a few minor changes, like they bring in a powerful AoE quick berserker at one point who sort of allows that to be a thing again. But yeah, it's just not really... The game sort of starts to ossify after this point and is sort of like on the downhill slope to irrelevance. I think most people are just sort of hanging on till the end of the arc so they can find out what's going to happen and see if the story baits them onwards, because the gameplay is pretty much ossified now. I don't think that there's really... I don't think that they've got the vision to change anything in this version of the game. They've said that they intend to, like, they're just going to rebuild the gameplay loop from scratch, but there's been no evidence forthcoming that that project is actually underway. It's just something they said they're going to do. So, yeah. That is that, I guess. Haven't really played any FF or Grim Dawn during the week because of basically devoting my time to gacha, or not having any time to devote to gacha. Did a couple of main scenario roulettes when I had no energy for anything else, but that's about it. What else? Okay, so the main thing that's different this week is that I made a fiscally irresponsible purchase. So it had been the case for a while that every time I plugged in my headphones, I would get frustrated by the fact that I was now tethered. I was tethered by a cable. So I've had on the brain buying a wireless headset for quite a long time, and was not really able to pull the trigger on it, because it was like, well, the thing is, my current headphones are good, and I don't want to step down. And I don't want to step across either, because I could just buy the same headphones except in wireless, but that would just be kind of weird, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. So I ended up not doing anything about it, but eventually I just sort of had I guess I just had sort of a failing of general self-control, because I was extremely tired one
Failed
day.
the will check.
And pardon?
Failed the will check.
Yeah, I failed the will check because I was under a pretty hefty set of debuffs, basically. So I ended up buying the most top of the line set of wireless noise cancelling headphones on Sony's catalogue. The WH-1000XM5. The very best that they've got. The most expensive. The most sort of flagship item that they have. The halo item that other items look up to. There are no better headphones on Sony's catalog than this in the wireless category. So yes, henceforth, my review thereof. So they're doing this thing that is like apparently seems to be the fashion at the moment in packaging in the electronics industry, which is to use no plastic. So everything is sort of like visibly recycled cardboard, packaging wise, and it's all like, oh well, we have carefully folded it like this and we've molded it like that so that we don't have to use plastic clamshell anywhere, which I appreciate to a certain extent, not because I'm a greenie, but because plastic clamshell is lethal to your hands if you aren't careful when opening it. The stuff is like made of razors. But yeah, the packaging, most of the packaging, except for like the outer recycled cardboard shell, is the hard case that comes with it. It's sort of like a semi-hard case. It's not a soft case and it's not a hard case that they package the headphones in. It's just quite a nice little case. It's got a compartment for the auxiliary wires and stuff if you should decide to use them. So yeah, it's actually very handy and it's much better than the case I was using for my old headphones, which was a soft case that was really flimsy and didn't offer any significant protection at all. But yeah, it comes with a conventional stereo cable to use the headphones as conventional stereo headphones. You have two options in that regard. You can actually use the headphones while they are powered off by plugging in the stereo cable, and they will function as completely conventional headphones. I haven't actually tried them in that context, but in that style, they require no additional power. They can be used with no battery as conventional passive headphones, the sort that you would find anywhere as wired headphones. So that's a sort of a nice little extra thing that they bolted on there that was sort of like unnecessary because it's a use case that you sort of shouldn't need to use ever, but it's there. And the second use for that wire is that you can use them in wired format rather than wireless while powered on, and it will have all of the regular functions that it would, except it will be tethered by a wire. And the thing with being tethered by wire, of course, is it allows you, number one, to use them as a microphone monitor if you should decide to do so, something that I never do because it makes me feel dizzy when I do it. And number two, there is no getting around the simple reality that wired sound quality is better. Period. End. The question is whether you can tell the difference. It is better. There's no question about it. Because it mathematically has to be. But whether you can tell the difference, so there are certainly people who can. But those people are quite few, in my opinion. But yeah. It also comes with the most useless USB-C cable I've ever seen. It is sort of about 4 inches long, and I'm a little bit puzzled as to why they included it at all if it was going to be that short, because it's sort of short enough that it's actually kind of awkward to plug into anything.
I
Like,
see.
theoretically, you can use it to charge the headphones, but why in the heck would you? Just get a longer one, seriously. Most people have a few lying about already anyway. So, yeah. Yeah, so onto the headphones themselves. These headphones, the WH-1000 XM5, are sort of like the version up of their flagship product. So these cost these cost more than 500 New Zealand dollars. In American dollars, I believe it's about 350 US dollars at the moment, catalog price. They are the flagship currently, and they are the updated model of the venerable XM4, which is usually, in most countries, you're sort of looking at $100 to $150 cheaper than the leading one. And the XM4s, from all accounts, are still incredibly solid headphones. But these ones are sort of a refinement of them. They're probably not really $150 worth of refinement, but my psychology at the time of purchasing these was not to buy the best value, but to buy the top of the line, basically to experience that and see what it's like. What is the experience of using the flagship product? So the same sort of irrational logic that led me to purchase the PlayStation VR was, well, this is ridiculously expensive, but I'm insatiably curious as to what it's like. So we will drop some change on it. Considering I don't really spend all that much money the rest of the time, I don't really feel all that guilty about it. But yeah, so this is a refresh model, but it's changed in a number of ways from the original version. They've made the whole structure quite a bit sleeker and more minimalistic in design. It's actually quite low profile compared to most over-ear headphones, and the band is quite narrow. I have heard reports that it's quite robust, that you can contort it pretty readily without it breaking. I have no intention of testing that. The joints feel kind of flimsy in isolation, but that flimsiness hasn't transferred over to feeling flimsy once you're wearing them. And the reports from external reviews seem to be that the joints are perfectly fine. Nobody has the joints fail on them or anything like that. I haven't seen anybody reporting that. Material. I bought the black ones because, well, black is the default, right? You buy black. I regret buying black. Normally I buy black of everything, as a matter of course. However, these headphones, the bulk of the surface plastic is made out of the popular material at the moment, which is recycled ABS mica blend, and this creates a very, very nice matte finish. However, the problem with this very, very nice matte finish created by ABS mica blends is that they are the worst kind of fingerprint magnet. Now, there are a lot of things that say, oh, well, gloss black is really bad because it's a fingerprint magnet, right? But the thing with gloss black is that you can polish the fingerprints away very easily. Mica, on the other hand, is not a sheer shiny surface. The mica ABS blend is a matte surface. So getting rid of the fingerprints once they are in there is extremely troublesome. Like, you basically have to use soapy water to do it. It's not easy to do. You can't just wipe them away. Normally, oily fingerprints is like, oh, well, I'll just use an ISO wipe or something, and we'll just wipe that oil away. No problem. Yeah, it doesn't work on this stuff. Not nearly so well. So yeah, if you get the silver kind, you will probably have less of a problem with obvious fingerprints on the surface than matte black. Because, matte black in practice, while a matte black item is matte black, it will look charcoal. But because fingerprints sort of fill the gaps in the surface, the fingerprints will look black. So you have like black fingerprints on charcoal surface. So yeah, very frustrating. Very, very frustrating. However, I mean, if you're buying headphones for the aesthetics, I don't know what to tell you. That's not the purpose of them. However, the aesthetics can be kind of frustrating. Right, so that's all sort of external stuff. Practicality stuff is like the battery is allegedly up to 30 hours, which means, 30 hours in catalog usually means about 20 to 25 hours in practice when new. I haven't tested it to that extent, and most of the time I'm not going to really have a need to. Like, how long am I away from a USB cable? Not that often. So I probably won't tax them to their outer limits very often, but it's liable to happen eventually. But I haven't tested the battery. Unfortunately, it's got the usual Sony battery monitor, which is a vocal one that is prompted by pressing a button, and like using it all day at work, it still said battery fully charged, which is not because the battery is fully charged, but because Sony doesn't put very many increments on their battery monitors. Usually there's like 4 or something like that. So yeah, not very helpful as far as battery life is concerned. So let's see. Oh yeah, the other thing about the practicalities of it, it's quite light. It's not heavy on the head at all. The band is narrow, but it doesn't dig in. I saw one review saying that these headphones are horribly uncomfortable, but I don't know what they were smoking. Like, at worst, these headphones are just as good as any other headphones in terms of comfort. I'm accustomed to using velour ear cups, which is really unpopular Most people don't like velour ear cups. I love velour ear cups. This does not have velour ear cups. I'm not really surprised because there is literally no point to putting velour ear cups on noise cancellers because velour lets too much sound through. But as a result, they are sort of like leatherette ear cups, which have the inevitable function of, well, yes, the sound isolation is better. Your ears will get hot long enough. There's no question about it because this happens with all such ear cups. If you're going to have closed headphones where there's no ventilation, which is what you want with noise cancellers, your ears will eventually get warm. I've worn them for several hours at a stretch, and while your ears do get warm, they don't really get horribly uncomfortably warm. They just get warm enough that you notice your ears are warm if you think about it. But I don't really consider it to be a serious problem, generally speaking. The adjustability of the headband it's quite adjustable. I thought I had quite a fat head, but I don't need to extend the arms barely at all in order to fit this on my head. I do need to extend them a little bit. The extension has no increments on it. It's a smooth motion with enough friction that it doesn't get sloppy. But it's doesn't have any individual settings on it. So if you need to precisely tune the size of it, you can. But yeah, other than that, yeah, they sit clamp quite nicely to your head without too much pressure. They don't move around very much when you move around. You can get good noise isolation with them. Ear cups are a little small for people with really big ears, I would say. I don't have remarkable ears. My ears are pretty average, I think. So that it fits quite nicely, but I think that if you're one of those people who has gargantuan sticky outy ears, these might not quite be your jam. Yeah. There are operationally it's operated by like a couple of buttons which are on the left ear cup, which do most of the things depending on how long you hold them. Like short hold is to power off, long hold is to do pairing. Press the button will toggle the noise cancelling on and off. One of the interesting things about this particular headphones is that if you toggle the noise cancelling function off, they don't turn into passive headphones, which is sort of a bit interesting. Instead of noise cancelling, the microphones which are used to generate the noise cancelling signal instead will just transfer external sound. So there's a little because they're not microphones designed for this. The quality is not very high. There's a certain amount of hiss as a result because, well, these aren't really meant to be used as passive headphones. That's not really the point. But yeah, you can press that button and it will toggle on using the microphones, because there's about 8 microphones embedded in the cups in various places, and it will switch them from being used to generate noise cancellation to transmitting the sound that they hear, so that you can basically hear not quite as well as without them on, but pretty well. And as a sort of a side function of that, most of the operations that they do are located on the right ear cup, because the right ear cup is actually a touchpad, which is bizarre, and I keep setting it off by accident because I forget that it's a touchpad and I move my headphones around, gradually getting used to not touching it for no reason. But it's got a bunch of functions embedded into it. Like you can, if you double tap it, it will play or pause whatever is your current active media. If you swipe it toward the front, then it will go next track. Swipe it toward the back, will go previous track. Swipe it up, volume up. Swipe it down, volume down. But one of the interesting things is if you just cover it, like put your palm on it, or all of your fingers to cover the surface or whatever, it will temporarily switch it to transmission mode. So if somebody comes in the room while you're wearing them, you can just put your hand over your right ear and suddenly you'll be able to hear everything in the room, which is an interesting feature. Yeah, I haven't used it yet, but I haven't used it as a feature yet, but it's sort of an interesting thing, an interesting little convenience if you are the sort of person who wears them a lot, but there are people who are going to come and talk to you, and you can just cover one ear cup and hear what they're saying. Yeah, so that's most of the sort of like the pragmatism part of it out of the way. So sound quality. So these are noise cancellers. They're pretty flagship noise cancellers. I have heard that the best noise cancellers on the market in general, in terms of raw noise cancelling algorithm, are actually Bose's top of the line ones, but these are a pretty close second from all accounts. Being that they are noise cancellers, they do suffer from some of the things that noise cancellers just generally do, and that is there is a sort of a slight, very slight, that might be really bothersome to some people. There's a very slight feeling of congestion to wearing them. Sort of like almost like having, you know how your ears feel kind of funny when you've got a head cold? It's like a very, very mild version of that. And that's just because your ears are constantly being filled with the cancellation signal. Like, it's noise that you can't hear, but there's noise there, so your ears are doing something.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean?
Kinda.
So, yeah. Like, it's very hard to describe because you're literally not hearing anything. But your ears sort of know that they're kind of hearing a thing, even though you can't hear it, because it's sort of like negative noise. Yeah, very hard to describe. But this is one of the things that is... Yeah, because they are hearing something, but they can't turn it into actual sound your brain processes, because it's just an inversion of what's going on. Like, the microphones are recording the noise that you should be hearing, and you're receiving an inverted version of it at the same time. So your ears are hearing, but there's no translation. So yeah, you're hearing blank space. It's kind of weird, but this is common to most reasonably high-end noise cancellers that have more than a simple algorithm. That you've got this slightly odd sensation. But one of the side effects of the odd sensation is that the sound stage is a little bit narrower than you would have with, conventional headphones, because you've got this extra strain of data that has to be processed. But there's a pretty minor quibble all told. The noise cancellation is very effective. It's mainly effective for low background noise and low mids. So if I walk into the room where the dehumidifier is running, and the dehumidifier is quite loud, it's basically a low pitched background drone that I can hear from rooms away. If I have these headphones on, I can't hear it at all. Like, it's basically perfectly removed. Maybe if I strained my hearing, I'd probably pick it up. Low mids are quite removed as well. Like, if somebody with a mid to low voice tries to talk to me, and they don't have if they don't have a very projecty sort of voice, it will probably remove all of that too. Like, I've had people come into my office and talk to me, and I can see their lips moving and nothing comes out. Which is a side effect of these that has been great, actually. Is that even if I'm not listening to music, I can put these on and just get blessed peace and quiet. Can't hear anything. It's fine. Just fine. High mids and trebles, on the other hand, are imperfectly removed. I don't know if this is deliberate or not. It might be deliberate, since most things, like, really loud bangs and that sort of thing that you might need to hear, even if you've got noise cancellers on, those come through a little bit. You can hear them. Like, if I snap my fingers next to my ears, I can hear at the edge of hearing, sort of like as of a distance, very muffled. I can hear those noises. Like, if I drop something on a hard surface, I can hear that. There's a high pitched, if somebody's got high pitched laughter or whatever, I can hear that. Like, there are some things that come through the noise cancelling, but they are also dampened a little bit, so it's not like they have no effect at the higher ranges. But it's clearly designed to get rid of things that I would probably characterize as like commuter background noise. Like, if you're on the train or something, and so you've got the rumble of the tracks, and you've got the chatter of other people on the train, that type of thing. They sort of look like what they're being targeted here. So yeah, I can put them on and get nice noise cancelling, and it seems to perform very well. It has been, the performance is, since it's generated dynamically, it can vary, but I haven't noticed any distracting variability in noise cancellation unless I am wearing them and then I suddenly start to talk really loudly or something like that. Then it can sometimes confuse the ear cups a little bit. Because they're suddenly picking up something that's way outside what they would normally be dealing with. It's sort of hard to tell with your own voice though, because most of the hearing of your own voice is coloured by the fact that your own skull vibrates when you speak, and there's no eliminating that. That's an impossible task. Yeah, so the noise cancellation function works extremely well. It's an odd feeling, but a very comforting one sometimes. If I'm stressed at work and there's just a lot of clamour going on and I want to work in my office, but people are being noisy in the break room next door or whatever, I can just put them on and it's nice and quiet and I can get to work without getting distracted. So, yeah, even as earmuffs, they work quite well. Sound quality wise, I'm not an audiophile for starters, so I don't have a very discerning ear, and I like a lot of quite simplistic music as well, in addition to some more complex stuff. Like, for instance, I am extremely fond of the OST for Blue Archive, for instance, despite the fact that they're all extremely simplistic tunes with very simplistic electronica. There's not really much to be discerned there in terms of quality, so I couldn't really tell you much about that. I've tried listening to a variety of different things on these headphones though, and they seem to perform very well. Like, you can feel the narrowness of the sound stage. Like, it's very perceptibly narrower, however the quality does not suffer for that. If you really, really prize that feeling of being in a very wide soundstage where it feels like you're in the center of an open arena and there's sound around you as well as in front of you or whatever, then you're going to find these frustratingly narrow. But narrowness is just sort of a side effect of the noise cancelling a lot of the time. I don't think I've ever heard of noise cancelling earphones that have a really good sound stage. So you're going to get a little bit of that feeling of the sound coming from within your head. That's more commonly associated with earbuds.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is capable of 3D sound, and I've experienced some occasions of it. It's not quite as good as some other things at doing 3D sound because of the narrow sound stage, but it can do it. It can do it, and Sony has some proprietary things on some services that have a significantly enhanced capability because it's designed specifically for their algorithm for doing 3D audio. But for generic 3D audio, like if I use Final Fantasy with the Immerse Game Pack, the 3D sound thing that they partner with, it performs quite well. It performs at least as well as my other headphones, maybe a little bit better, because there's less noise filtering through from the outside room to confuse it. But you can still feel that there are limitations on the soundstage compared to other headphones. The breadth of it is just not quite as much as it would be, but the fidelity is excellent. There are, again, there are limitations. These are wireless ones. I haven't tried them in wired mode to see if I can perceive the difference, and honestly, I don't think I'll be able to. However, it's worth keeping in mind if you've got an ear for sound quality that when you're connecting them to your PC, if you are a Windows user, you're going to end up using the incredibly shite baseline Bluetooth compression codec that Windows uses by default to broadcast sound. These headphones are capable of much, much higher bit rates than that. You can purchase quite inexpensively for like $7, I think. I haven't purchased it yet, but I intend to. You can purchase a piece of middleware that will get in the way of Windows Bluetooth codec and allow you to filter the sound into Sony's proprietary LDAC codec instead, which has a very much higher bit rate. So if you're interested in good quality, it's very easy to use piece of software. You should test the trial out first because some setups just don't work all that well with it. But yeah, it's a very easy piece of software to just install and tell it to you broadcast LDAC instead. It will intercept Windows when it tries to go and use the basic codec for Bluetooth sound, and will use the high quality LDAC one instead. Though, of course, it being Bluetooth, it's got other limitations, of course. So if you wanted to use these headphones as a headset, you couldn't use LDAC, because basically LDAC is a one-way street. It's for high-quality sound broadcast, and Bluetooth is quite a narrow band. It doesn't do two-way high quality very well at all. There's sort of like a hard cap on quality if you're using a Bluetooth headset. Most people aren't that concerned about it. But yeah, if you're going to use microphone to broadcast as well as the receiving the sound to the headphones, Bluetooth is pretty limited on what you can do. Which is why if you look at like high-end gaming headsets, most of them don't just use Bluetooth. They usually have a wireless adapter of some other kind, which will use a different protocol in order to get much higher quality. But the high quality that you can get from the LDAC codec is more than enough if you're into the high quality. And it's this total non-entity for me, because when I'm sitting at my PC, I'm using my sort of high quality casting mic anyway. I don't need to use this as a headset. I don't really want to either, since it's a headset that, like, the headset functionality that these headphones have is sort of an afterthought of the sort of people who are going to take a call on their phone while listening to music on their phone. It's not get out of them and the noise cancelling. So yeah, the sound quality, the fidelity is very good. However, out of the box, I did not like the way it's equalized out of the box. So the way you tune these headphones is that most of the settings are tuned using an app that you can download to your phone from the Google Store or whatever, and that will allow you to basically set up settings for the headset, and then you pair the headset with it, and the app allows you to adjust the headset's onboard setting. So I strongly recommend with these headphones that when you get them, you play around with the equalizer and find something a bit better, or if you don't really have the patience or the chops for that, you can just find some popular settings online, because out of the box, the flat equalizer on these headphones is not very good. It's really kind of congested and muddy. The bass is very boomy, and the trebles are really weak and don't balance it very well. So a little bit of mid and treble extension on the upper end is pretty good. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with a lot of boomy sound and not much definition above the bass. So yeah, it's a good idea to play around with the equalizer. It took me quite a while to actually grasp how it worked. Like, I was like, oh well, I wasn't going to play around with the phone app, because I was like, well, I'm not primarily going to use these on my phone necessarily, so I don't really care what my phone settings are. But no, the app is for adjusting the headphones themselves. It is not a filter through which the phone sends its signal. So yeah. But yeah, overall, it's an outrageous purchase at the purchasing price I paid for it. Most people just don't need it. But as a luxury item, it is an extremely good luxury item. I don't have the XM4s to compare them with, the sort of $150 cheaper last generation version of them. From all accounts, that was an excellent set of flagship headphones as well. But these have pretty much lived up to the hype. Maybe they have not lived up to the price. I think most of the people buying a product like this don't care about the price. They just care that it's the flagship. And that was sort of the logic that I bought it on, was that I wanted to experience the flagship product. But yeah, I think that they have lived up to the hype. The noise cancelling is good. The sound quality is incredible. The sort of the functionality and the quality of life stuff that it's got are all great. There are various aspects of it that are a bit troublesome, but they're all things that you grow used to in the process of using a set of headphones. Audiophiles will tell you that headphones need to be broken in over a period of time before they settle. I don't know if that's true or not, and I haven't used these very much, so I don't know if the sound will sag over time or anything like that, but I've seen reports from people who use these headphones as sort of daily drivers, who say that, well, they've been using it every day for 12 months and they're perfectly fine, just as good as they ever were. But Yeah. So it's a extremely high end product that I can't recommend shelling out for unless your objective is to get the flagship, because that's where it really becomes valuable. If you don't care about the fine grained detail, then get the previous generation, I would say, because it's $150 cheaper and most of the way is good. From what I have heard from reviewers, the previous generation, it's noise cancellation of the speaking range of other people is not quite as good, and the noise cancellation of the rumble frequency is very slightly worse, and it doesn't have the ability to use the highest quality bit rates if you pair it with more than one device at once. So like I can pair these headphones to my phone and to my PC at the same time if I switch them onto that mode. So, but that in the earlier generation, you could still do that, but they came at a quality penalty. But so yeah, there are some drawbacks to the previous generation. But that was $150 cheaper. And how often do you need to tether your headphones to more than one thing anyway? Yeah. So yeah, this is not a hard recommend, but it is a review that says that these are a good product. But they are a good product when you have already stopped caring about the price, is my opinion. But
Nice.
yeah, that's basically what I've got to say about that.
Audio quality is not much like audio and visual quality. I hit my cap on what I can tell the difference on very seems much earlier than most people. So it's not something I've ever had a significant opinion on.
Yeah, well, this was more about getting wireless, and then like sort of I got carried away with the idea. I don't know if you've ever been in the position where you just sort of you've got an idea to buy a cool thing, and then you just sort of like recklessly upsell yourself over and over again until you're starting to think about buying something outrageous.
Oh, I did that this week, but I made a fiscally irresponsible purchase at probably the worst timing because my phone was driving me nuts.
I see. Yeah, I did think about buying a new phone as well, but then I started the sort of self upsell process, and then as much as anything, buying these headphones was a way to sort of defuse that impulse for a while. Because while my phone is not quite at the level of pissing me off yet, it is getting really long in the tooth, and I started looking at other options. It's like, well, what do my workmates have? And it's like, Nishan, what's your phone? He's like, oh, it's the $2,300 S23. And like, okay, that's the sort of phone my brother would buy. Um, yeah. I bought these in sort of a snap judgment as in part to try and avoid thinking about big spending on a much larger scale, which would be what the phone would be. My current phone is like a $700 phone when it came out, with the sort of the benchmarks equivalent to $1,000 phone, since it's a shady Chinese one. But I've become increasingly uncomfortable with shady Chinese products over the course of years. So when I get my next one, I'll probably buy a very, very slightly less shady one. So that'll probably result in going for a mainstream brand like Samsung or something. But yeah. Anyway, I think I will leave it there for you to talk about your week. And while you get started on that, I'll go to the bathroom, which I can do now without losing sound because I have wireless headphones.
Right. So while he's doing that, I'll lay the groundwork for you to segue. Uh, my phone is old. Let's see. When did this? Because I got it the year it came out. Let's see. Because and I have to use iPhones because of work. So let's see. I got the iPhone 8. It's when did this thing come out? I got it like right when the Christmas it came out. Yeah, so it's 2017. That is over half a decade old. So that phone had a good run. But that phone is now not connecting to people, losing cellular signal all the time when other phones aren't. That's just due to the band on the stupid thing wearing out. Its Wi-Fi acts up all the time. Its Bluetooth isn't behaving properly. It's not getting security updates anymore because they took out security updates for from iPhone 8s. Its iPhone 8 updates are now discontinued. Uh, it can't run modern apps. It can't run uh, gaming app or games well for modern games. Like it chugs with Blue Archive. It mega chugs, and I needed to replace this thing. And finally, when I was having trouble at work getting the work app to work, I just threw my hands up in the air and said, "Screw it! I'll just get the newest phone that's currently on the market, even though the 15's coming out like in probably a month or two. I'm just going to go ahead and get the 14, and I'm going to the 14 Pro Max, the biggest one that's there. I only got 256 gigabyte because I don't put that much crap on my phone, and went ahead and pulled the trigger on that because you kind of need your phone if you have,
Well,
especially if
you need to be able to take calls. It's important you take calls because if they can't call you, they might call the opossum.
yeah, and if my receiver band is acting up and the signal gets low in my office for whatever reason, which it does often, and the office at my house, not the office. That's a problem. So yeah, I just went ahead and pulled the trigger on it. Figure I'll get the new latest and greatest thing from Apple so that I can just try and squeeze the same amount of life out of this one. I mean, I got
I don't know
six.
if Apple. I don't know if Apple adopts that philosophy though. Normally, they want to reduce the amount of lifespan of a product,
Yeah,
season
but
over season.
I'm not a 16-year-old teenage girl, so I don't use my phone nonstop. If people want to get a hold of me, they can. They usually get a hold of me on the PC somehow. I do most of my work contact via email or via landline, and with the office phones, or all my friends contact me through either Discord or Steam. So yeah, don't my phone doesn't see much use besides uh, taking work calls, using the work app, and playing phone games when I'm stuck somewhere waiting on somebody with literally nothing else to do. Or if I'm not playing phone games at that time, flipping up the web browser and just reading random crap on the internet. So I'm not an obsessive phone user. I turn audiobooks and YouTube on sometimes when I'm driving and have the Bluetooth receiver pick it up, play it through the car speakers. But that's about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much like the limit of what I do on my phone as well. Like I receive a lot of texts from people calling in sick, which is basically most of the texts I receive, people calling in sick, and I listen to SoundCloud in my car, and I doom scroll on the Twitter, and I play FGO and Blue Archive. And that's pretty much my entire phone usage.
Yeah, and I just yeah, nobody texts me anymore for social conversations. They've learned not to do that because
People
what?
do that?
Oh yeah, they used to try and talk to me in text messages all the time because you know what I'll do if they do that? I'll pick up the phone and call them. And this is a
Oh, people hate receiving calls when they're starting to try and do a text conversation.
oh I
Like
know.
I didn't realize that this was a thing. Um, Text conversations used to be really popular in New Zealand, like in like 2005, but the popularity has sort of died back a bit. But I've heard, and I've seen memes about it online, in fact, that people really, really, really hate if you reply to a text by calling them.
Yeah, it's a thing that people don't like. But they're getting that from me if they send me a text message. So nobody texts me anymore.
Yeah, it would be nice if nobody texted me anymore, but the reality is I kind of wish that I received more texts, not because I want to receive more texts, but because every time I receive a text, it's usually something that I really don't want to know. Like somebody is called in sick, and so every time my phone buzzes, I just get filled with a feeling of dread in the pit of my stomach.
It's like
Like,
when
oh no, somebody else is going to claim they've got the coof and can't come in all week.
yeah, it's like if that phone never rings, it's always almost always a family member if they're calling me directly and not uh paging me over Discord or Steam or something. And if I pick up that phone, bad juju's happening.
Yeah,
It,
all hell will be unleashed. It will be another season of weird shit Ari's family does.
had that this week. Can't talk about it because the fuzz might be involved.
Great.
Yeah, well, I can hint at it because it is stupid and ridiculous. But Opossum's wife's family had an incident the very first day they got moved into the old folks' home, and the incident is vague and bad enough that we might need the fuzz. I am desperately trying to keep the fuzz away from the situation, so I am not going to say anything else about it. But
The Atlanta Popo don't make anything better.
no, the Gwinnett County Popo would be there. Actually, I think it'd be the Brazelton Popo, but all the same difference. They're the fuzz in town is not your friend. I know some. I used to know some members of the police that were normal-ish people, and I don't know them anymore. I haven't talked to them in years. But all my interactions for the past 5 or 6 years with the local fuzz have been awful. I hate the local fuzz.
Yeah, they're sort of like it's not used very much anymore because it's sort of frowned upon. But the fuzz was sort of like it's British slang originally, I think, for the police. But there's another much lesser used British slang for the police, which the fuzz is sort of like the G-rated version of it, because it used to be that the police were referred to as the filth.
Ah, yes. I thought they were called the fuzz because of the fuzzy hats.
No, because the thing is that it's British slang, but the police in Britain used to wear those domed hard hats. Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where the term the fuzz originally comes from, but there's a slightly older, a slightly less used one, which is the filth. So it just sort of expresses how people feel about them showing up.
Yeah, I adopted the fuzz because it's really popular over here with like the Gen X people, but my generation and the half generation, little micro generation I'm a part of, and the millennials and and the Zoomers don't have good names for the fuzz. Like they're not fun.
I thought, I thought the popo was in the millennial generation.
Yeah, but Popo, it sounds you sound dumb when you say it. I think.
It was a little bit ebonics.
Yeah, but the fuzz, you know, you can put emphasis on a sentence with when you say, the fuzz is coming. But when you say the popo's coming, it doesn't have the same impact. So that's why I've always called him the fuzz. But but yeah. Uh so yeah, family drama's happening. That ate all of Thursday. And well, sorry, not Thursday. All of Friday. Uh and I got stuck at the office alone most of this week. Uh trying to keep the company afloat while the opossum dealt with his wife's parents and got them moved into the old folks' home. There was a lot of other family drama I'm not going to talk about involving this move, but yeah, it's been a hell of a week. And it's not nice to say this, but I don't like those two. I don't like her parents. They're mean, nasty people that have been mean and nasty to everybody their whole life. And the only reason they're getting any help from the opossum and me is familial obligation, and I'm not even their family. I have no blood relation to them whatsoever. But the opossum's wife needs help, so I feel bad for her having to deal with everything to do with them by herself. So as usual, I have to play sensei and take responsibility for things, which in this case is their checkbook, because goodness knows nobody in that household or their extended families or immediate families can do math. Uh, I wonder what it's like to have a normal family. I'm pretty sure that's a thing that only
I,
happens in stories.
I have a normal family. My family's totally normal.
Mine's not. Mine's insane.
My family are very unsociable, I suppose. Like I don't know that I would say that they've got very many friends because just aren't very outgoing.
No, yeah, it's a mess. I got cursed somewhere in my youth to lead an interesting life, and it stuck. But yeah, so that's real life. Video games.
I googled the etymology of the fuzz, and literally every entry in the hits gives a different explanation.
I see.
And the entries are also split down the middle as to whether it originated in Britain or America.
It might have.
The suggest they give the fuzzy hat suggestion, but that doesn't make any sense since the British police didn't used to wear fuzzy hats. They say that it could be the sound of static on police radios. They say that it could be a mispronunciation of the force. They say that it could be a mispronunciation of fuss because the police officers are fussy. They say that where else? There's a few others in here as well. But none of them sound very credible, to be honest.
Yeah. So I just like the way it sounds when you say it. Defuzz. Just a,
Apparently, there was on CB radio there used to be a slang calling the police bears, and fuzz was a spin-off of it.
let's see. Maybe in every single region of the world, everybody had their own unique cultural reasons for all at the same time creating the slang word the fuzz for the police, and it just is total coincidence. Maybe they're all true. Not likely, but that would certainly be a thing. Oh dear, my train of thought has gone back to the fuzz.
Right. So you because you sidelined from your phone to your family and then to
Fuzz,
video.
right?
You
Vidget,
had arrived at video.
right? So I played a whole bunch of Armored Core during my free time this week. It's basically all I did. I spent a couple hours one evening spamming Rival Wings with Abo, which we can requeue for.
I think it would be better to be saving it to after the show because I can't concentrate on anything. It's too new to me. I don't know where anything is or what anything is, so I can't focus at all.
Okay. Um. But yeah, did a couple hours of Rival Wings with Abo one evening. Got to get enough tomes to buy the super exclusive stuff that you can only get during the anniversary, and that's all the Final Fantasy I played. The only other game that's eaten a ton of my time, aside from a little bit of Blue Archive and logging in basically to do my weeklies and clear out as much of the event as I can. I haven't cleaned out the shop yet. Is to put time into Armored Core. So I'm having a lot of fun with Armored Core. I'm on my last playthrough for doing all three routes. I'm near the end of it. There are many less missions on the final route, so that one's a really quick route. You think it cuts out something like 7 or 8 missions, and the game's only 30 missions long per route, 30-ish. But and the missions are really short. They're like, I think the longest one is like maybe 15 minutes. That's a very abnormally long one. Most of them are closer to 5 to 10. So I've got a real good handle on the game and its mechanics now, and how it works. And the game is a lot of fun. Going in and customizing your mech and just sitting there and autistically trying to get every bit of value out of the weight limit and the energy limit for the current generator and legs that you have equipped is a lot of fun. And taking that in and seeing it actually work or not work, and then taking back, tweaking it a little bit, and trying again, and all that—that's a ton of fun. That aspect of the game is great. The boss fights, the big chapter in boss fights, got some teeth to them the first time you do them. You're gonna wipe at least a couple times on most of them, um, and maybe have to retool your build, especially on your first playthrough because you don't have access to nearly as many parts. And those are a ton of fun. Most of the AC other enemy AC encounters your first playthrough can some of them can be a rather unique challenge if they've got a specialized build that focuses on one aspect that you're not used to dealing with, like aerial bipedal aerial ACs can be a little rough for your first playthrough because if you haven't figured out a few of the tricks that I've found while playing, and they can be fun to learn, and that they are what will teach you things like the kick 'em in the face strat. So finding all those strats out and learning how to pilot your mech better and figuring out what parts work best where, all that stuff is a ton of fun. I genuinely liked every single boss fight in the game except for one of them, which is a gimmick boss fight where you're forced to equip at least one of a very specific electrified needle launcher shoulder pad that's massive and eats up most of your arm load limit and energy limit, especially with the generators you have available at that point in the game. And you have to sit there and wait for this thing to pop its head out of the ground and try and pop it in the face with this stupid thing 3 times. It is literally a hit the flash and red weak point 3 times and dodge the attacks boss in an Armored Core game. It is not fun. It's a very boring boss, and S ranking that mission on replay drove me nuts. But every single other boss is a ton of fun to fight. And I guess the helicopters become a meme at this point for being the tutorial boss, but I'm not really talking about him. He's the tutorial boss. But the first boss, the mech with the gazillion missile launchers at the end of Chapter 1 that is also filtering people. If they can make it past the helicopter, this guy is... If they just squeak by the helicopter, this guy's going to sit them down and make sure they don't go anywhere until they've got a handle on getting a better build and loadout for their AC and figuring out how the controls of the video game work. Because he has attacks that, with some AC builds, you just can't dodge. You're going to take at least chip damage from it. And he's very fast. He's very mobile. He's got a lot of aerial mobility, and he just spams the screen in rockets. And if you try to fight him when you're on a replay to try and get the S rank on your work computer, because you're like, I bet I can make it work on the lowest settings, when all those missiles comes out, it's enough missiles to crash the game. So don't do that. Fight him on a proper PC. And then, but yeah, as far as the gameplay itself, there aren't too many stinkers of missions. There's a few standouts. There's the, why did this developer feel the need for the obligatory stealth mission? There is one that is literally just fall straight down a shaft and try to take as little damage as possible. The only way to do this is to find a nook in one of the railings that runs all the way down and just get in that nook and hope that you get lucky. And that's how you get the S rank in that mission. And so there's those 2 stinkers. What other stinkers are there? That's really it for the mega stinker missions. I feel like I'm forgetting one more that really drove me nuts. And only one boss fight that's bad. The rest of the game is a ton of fun. However, if you are looking for a community to have in-depth discussions about, how to customize your AC and all the fun and interesting builds people have come up with, and thinking, oh, well, this game's a big old game about giant robots and all the gazillions of parts you can stick on it. Surely the discussion online about the effectiveness of different builds will be a central focus of everything. No, you're wrong. As usual, gamer brain kicks in. But in this case, there is a particular weapon in the game for your shoulder slots that is so busted that literally every bit of discussion turns into just use the songbird. Now, I'm not sure what FromSoft thought when they put this in the game. You unlock it after you beat that tough boss at the end of chapter 1 I was just talking about, like right afterwards. You might even get it from him. And you what you do, what these do is they are a grenade launcher for your shoulders. They are a small grenade launcher, but they have basically no bullet drop off, so their effective range is ridiculous.
But it's a grenade launcher. The whole point of grenades is that they have drop off.
No, these things are functionally rockets. It fires 2 of them per shot. They have a medium reload time, so they reload in about 4 seconds. When fired together, can stun, build up the break bar for literally any AC, regardless of its break bar limit in the game. Period. End. It will get stunned, and they do incredible damage. And also, they give you like something like 52 rounds for this thing for each one for the whole mission.
But it's
And,
a CC tool. Shouldn't there be like 4?
yeah, like the big boy rocket grenade version that has the super high. Oh, and also it's functionally a lightweight part. It takes almost no capacity for your energy load or your weight load to equip these things, so you can just slap them on anything. So now if you get their big boy equivalent, which I have on some of my builds, it fires a single shot, has a 12-second cooldown before it recharges, which is a long time for the cooldowns in this game, and only has 10 rounds. No, 16 rounds. And its damage ain't that much higher than the Songbird. And it's also a very heavy part. Like, something like 4 times the weight of the Songbird.
If the Songbird wasn't in the game at all, like just imagine the scenario where it was just gone, disappeared, never existed, or not anymore at any rate, would there be another OP part that would float to the top, or is the Songbird just that much of an anomaly that you would actually achieve a state of debate over the best way of doing things if just the Songbird was gone?
So, the Songbird's biggest problem. Well, to answer your question, I think if the Songbird was removed, yes, you would see more diversity in builds. Although I think you obviously would still have somebody come out and claim they found the clear winner for best shoulder piece, and it would become the most popular. It would not be as bad as the Songbird is right now, though, because the Songbird is A, blatantly busted, and B, incredibly accessible because it's a big end of chapter reward that pops up with the reward screen, and because its damage is so high. When you're sorting by weapons in a game, in a big list of weapons, and it gives you the sort options, what's the first thing you usually try sorting by? Damage. Yeah. And guess what's at the top of the damage list as soon as you finish chapter 1 for the entirety of your first playthrough? The Songbird. So everybody is going to experiment with this thing because they're going to see it at the top of the damage list for shoulder weapons. And they're going to realize, oh, this thing's busted after they fire it once. Oh, and did I mention the grenades explode on impact? And so they have no time to roll around or anything, and they have a giant explosion radius.
In what way are these grenades?
I don't know.
It's just like smart bombs or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the lore of the stupid thing. But yeah, I had to fight my gamer brain and forcibly unequip the Songbirds to get any kind of to get myself a bit more mileage with the game because I realized immediately how busted they were.
It was just going to be a catch-all solution for every problem.
Yeah, it would be when in doubt, use the Songbird on it. Dual Songbirds. The only scenario where they are not the optimal solution is if you're fighting a mech that is very fast in the air, because they do still have a travel time, and it is slightly slower than a proper rocket, but not by much. So if you're shooting from too far away at some aerial mech that can zip around and evade a lot, you're probably not going to get direct hits with the Songbird. However, they're still going to contribute to killing the stupid thing because all you got to do is use your other weapons to stun it, and then then do Songbird mega damage on it. So yeah, I just had to fight my gamer brain and not use it. Um, there's plenty of other explosive type shoulders in the game, and the explosive type in general, it's a little hard to avoid it because it is so superior as a shoulder weapon type compared to the missiles.
This is basically, is this better or worse than, say, what was it called, Mimic Tears,
Uh,
whatever it was?
a mimic tier is worse because at least with Songbird, you if you are just bad at the
You
game,
still have to play the game.
you still have to play the game. The mimic tier can't solo the game for you. So you do still have to dodge the boss's attacks, but all you need is one opening and then double Songbird, and then you've got them in a stun lock, and they're not going anywhere. But you still have to get to that point in the fight, which for a lot of game journos is probably too much. But
I don't know. I don't know how they feel about patching these things. I mean, FromSoft were really active about patching
yeah,
Elden Ring.
they've
Well,
gotten
they
more
needed
active
to
with it.
be.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the Armored Core team are going to take the same approach or not. I don't know how well it would be received. Like, did they ever nerf the crap out of Mimic Tears? I don't remember.
Yeah, they did nerf it.
Yeah, was there wailing and gnashing of teeth?
Yes.
I think we can probably afford another round of wailing and gnashing of teeth.
Yeah. They nerfed Hoarfrost Stomp to the first OP weapon art before, and that when they nerfed that, bleed damage became the meta, and then they nerfed that, and they didn't nerf it enough, so bleed damage is still the meta, but it's not quite as ridiculous as it was.
Well, the thing is that I think that that's all right because to use a build like bleed damage, you actually have to go to some effort to put the build together, and you still have to, actually land your hits. Like, it's not going to, nothing is going to play bleed for you. You still have to get the bleed on them and keep it up.
Yeah, you still have to play some of the game, even if the Redruvia is available immediately, like 10 feet from you in Limgrave, and its weapon art is a giant sword wave from a dagger that is incredibly easy to hit the entire world with.
But you can build against it though. Like, if getting teabagged by somebody with it is your problem, you can build against it, and it's not going to solve all the problems for you.
Yeah, I think of these things strictly in a PvE context, and when it comes to FromSoft games, I do not like things that make you disengage from learning the fight. Because they put a lot of effort into making these very intricate fights that if you sit down and you learn how the boss moves, you learn what it does, you can come up with your own unique and fun ways of dealing with it, and that's a ton of fun to me. But recently they just okay,
Go on.
okay,
Go on. No, go on.
but recently they just had this stretch of items in the game that just allow players to bypass this, and I think it detracts from the game as a whole if the whole community can't unite around the fact that yeah, we actually had to push buttons and figure out a way to beat this boss. But they've in two games in a row now they've had items that functionally solo the game for you.
I feel like, well, internally, I think of Elden Ring as a game where I only fought one boss. Like, I don't think of anything else that I killed in that game as a boss, except for that one ugly guy.
Margaret.
Yeah.
Or I guess for you, it certainly sounded like you were more angry at the demi fiends in the cave or whatever.
Yeah, I was more angry at them because I felt like I was fighting the camera. I didn't feel like I was fighting the boss at all. It was like the camera is pointing the wrong way again, and I got hit by something I couldn't see. And every time I did that fight, the camera would do something slightly different and just as annoying.
Yeah.
And I would get killed by something I couldn't see.
And
that was the reason why I was mad at that because the camera boss is a boss that you have to fight in every third person game. Everyone is done slightly differently, and you usually can't tell what it's going to do until you're in a boss fight, which is the worst possible situation for it.
And in FromSoft's case, the lock on unlock on dance is a thing you just kind of takes a while to learn how to do, but you'll do it naturally given enough time. But if it's your first FromSoft game going into Elden Ring and you get the multi-boss cave, you better get to learning it.
It's something that I resent because it's not the challenge that they designed.
Yeah.
It's a challenge that happens because of the framework that they're designing their challenges in. But no, the one that I classify as a real boss was Margit, and I gather that there's some way of like nerfing him using a discoverable item or something that I heard about, and I'm like, you must be kidding. There's no way I'm going to use that after I've spent so much time fighting
Yeah.
this guy.
Even then, that item isn't a free win. It's just you can stun him for a few seconds, once or twice in the fight.
Not that being able to stun a boss for a few seconds once or twice during a fight would be the difference. I mean, that's going to be the difference between
Yeah,
a
that
success and a failure most of the time,
yeah that'll
because that's what it takes for you to die is
that
to get.
that lets you push yourself over to the victory screen as soon as you get within range. Yeah, I know.
But
But
I did not do that. I just smashed my face against him over and over, and I did not use any kind of item or tactic. I got a big sword, and I danced with him until he fell over before I did.
just get better and better at it to get farther and farther in the fight more times until finally the boss fall over because you executed right or got lucky or both.
Yeah, yeah. I'm the sort of person who, if I can see victory is at least theoretically in sight, I will refuse to change my strategy until I have executed it perfectly and shown that perfect play was not enough to win.
Yeah, I get that way quite a bit. But yeah, Margit's a good first proper FromSoft boss to for players to run into. I think he teaches you a lot about the design philosophy of FromSoft bosses when it comes to Souls games.
Margaret is 100% uh, read his tells and get the spacing right, and
Yeah,
that's all you need to do. But you need to do it every single time because one failure is enough to kill you.
yep, that's pretty much how it be. You just do it until you learn it, and do the dance perfectly once, and you win. Now wait till you decide to go back and play Dark Souls 3 and have to deal with Dancer of the Boreal Valley, who has the exact same
I don't see
anime,
that happening.
who has the exact same animation for like two of her attacks, but their speeds are different. There's literally no difference in the wind up animation. She is considered a very mean boss for a reason. So yeah, but in Armored Core, all the bosses felt fair. Uh, Using standard missile launchers or just high impact shoulder weapons that weren't the Songbird, I was able to muscle my way through every single boss in the game just by learning how to fight them. And
No, I
everything is
want to beat every boss by punching it.
now there's a guy that's doing that on YouTube. You probably could. I probably could now, but uh, it does. Once it clicks with you in Armored Core, it stays clicked. Like especially as soon as you figure out how to abuse the super dash uh, to avoid attacks and how to time your quick dodges while super dashing. You're not getting hit by anything you don't want to unless it's unavoidable. And there is a lot of unavoidable damage in the game, so your mech's health pool still matters even if you know the bosses inside and out. You don't want to
Yeah, well,
build a piece of
I
glass that's going to melt to that.
I find with a lot of action games, the wipes are for learning what types of damage can be avoided and what ones can't, so that you don't waste time trying to avoid ones that can't be avoided.
Yeah, but other than the worm boss, all the end climax bosses were a lot of fun. Why did they put the stupid hit the glowy weak point 3 time boss in the game? But yeah,
Make the game's journalists feel like there was something actually within reach of their intellect.
I don't. Well, the problem is the worm does like half your health if you accidentally tap it when it's popping out of the ground. So they may just not be able to hit it because the stupid weapon you got to use to smack it in the head is a shoulder weapon, so you can't use it while boosting. So you have to stop, aim it, and use it. And and its fire rate is very slow. The projectile is pretty quick, but
But you see, what we know about games journalists is that they can't do things that involve two things at once, like jump dash. You can't do that. So, a boss that is beaten by doing only one thing at a time, maybe they could handle that.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, all the general gameplay stuff is great. The first playthrough is the best playthrough by far. because once you've got all the parts unlocked, it's impossible to stop Gamer Brain at that point. There's too many really good parts you can slap on the mech to just break the game on subsequent playthroughs. And
I don't know. What I see mainly in the like, because I haven't gone to try and like hang out on the Armored Core Reddit or wherever the community actually is. But mainly what I see people doing is building a mech for the aesthetics of the design and then trying to take that aesthetic through the whole game.
yeah, you wind up with a whole. I've wound up in the scenario a lot where, yeah, this is probably the optimal mech for the build I'm going for, but that headpiece is so ugly. Can I get something that looks just a little better? The amount of similar scenarios I've had go on while I'm putting my mech together is nuts. I'll post my mech in the video game, or not in the video game, in the live show chat. Just open it up. But this is my go-to mech. It's a quad-legged mech with the Big Daddy rocket launchers on the shoulders. Two of them, the ones that only have 16 shots, and the giant explosion with the really long recharge. And it dual-wields shotguns with the best super dash booster I can get, and the whatever generator, the fattest generator with the most capacity possible. I want to stay hovering and flying as long as I can with them quad legs, and it's a ton of fun. You will the best tip I'll give, so that I don't give too much away, because building the mech is part of the fun of the game. But as far as a gameplay mechanic, they just don't tell you about, because you unlock it by doing arena matches. Uh, you'll get little chips you can spend on permanent upgrades from the arena, and this includes a few unlockable abilities, like the ability to, most of them are useless, like the ability to go into a mission overburdened, or to drop your weapons before they run out of ammo and stuff like that. But one of them is the ability to end your super dash, which is called assault thrust, by the way. With a kick, and the kick you do is determined by the leg type you have. So if you're a bipedal normal one, you'll just kind of do a sweep, a big roundhouse kick at the end of it. If you have the springy leg type, the leg will coil back and shoot out forward to do a big heavy kick with a lot of knockback. If you have the quad legs like I do, you spin your legs around like a top in front of you and drill into the boss with a triple kick. And if you have the tank treads, you just kind of buck your tank forward and squish them. But the kick is a great way to close the distance on a boss and put some damage on the break bar, or just get some damage on the boss if you break him with your ranged weapons with your handheld weapons while you're dashing at him. Because for some stupid reason, the kick gets the 3 times damage multiplier if you kick an enemy when they're in break state, and your damage on the kick is determined entirely by your mech's overall weight, and a little bit by your leg type. So figure out how to use the kick. It will save you a lot of headaches, especially with some of the faster mechs. And it only costs like 1 upgrade chip, and you'll have like 70 to distribute by the end of your first playthrough. So be sure you get the kick early. The last thing to talk about with Armored Core is subsequent playthroughs and S ranking. So subsequent playthroughs. The second playthrough is the worst playthrough, because almost all of it is exactly the same, with very little story deviation until the very, very end, and just taking the mission branching paths that you didn't take the first time, and there's only like 3 or 4 of them. And the missions they take you to are just quick AC fights against the opposite corporation. No big deal. Nothing to write home about there. The third playthrough is significantly more interesting, where you side with a third faction that the other characters don't have. I think most of them aren't even aware that it exists. I'm not sure what our end goal is here, because even like I'm near the end and we're still kind of vague on it. But it has a lot of its own unique missions, and even replaying old missions will have surprises that pop out. Like different, like you'll see. Okay, this mission normally ends in another helicopter fight as a throwback to the first mission, whatever, and then a new AC shows up and one shots the helicopter, and that's your new boss fight. So the third playthrough has a lot of unique stuff like that that goes on, but it's still significantly easier than your first because most of the missions are still the same, and you have access to more parts. Um, S ranking missions. S ranking missions is normally something I really enjoy in games, but I have not gotten as much out of doing that in this game as I have in other games. And the primary reason for that is a couple of the restraints they put on you for granting you progress towards S ranking the mission. Now, there's no way to tell how much each of these parameters is weighted in every individual mission, but people that have experimented with it have come to the general conclusion that the single most important factor is how quick you finish the mission. Period. End. So any build that can't go fast enough for whatever reason, either because it's too fat with bad legs, or it doesn't have enough ability to hover in the air or assault boost long enough, it's going to have a harder time at rank of the mission. Just that's the way of it. The second most important thing is how much damage you take. You want to take as little damage as possible, and specifically, you don't want to use repair kits. These seem to add a colossal. They seem to count against you by a colossal amount compared to just losing health and sitting on the lost health. So if you have all 3 repair kits in your tank and you're nearing the end of a boss fight and only have like 2,000 health left, don't pop a repair kit. Finish the boss and don't play it safe and just leave those repair kits sitting. And every time I've done that, it's been enough to bump me over to the S rank. The third thing is the problem one. Fire as few shots as humanly possible. So you remember that assault boost kick I was talking about? I got really good at it because S ranking missions has this stupid requirement in it. So the way I have gone about S ranking missions has been a fairly consistent strat. Using that mech right there, the shotgun's bullets, because it actually cares more about the cost of your ammo. Those shotgun bullets don't cost anything to fire. And that particular shotgun holds like 60-something shots each. And if I can get in something's face, I can do a ton of damage with them. So I use that thing to boost around the map as fast as possible, or stay airborne as much as possible, and just boost into dudes and kick them in the face. And if I can kill them this way in 1 or 2 kicks, that's the way that enemy's going to die. If I need to break it first, the shotguns come out. If for some reason there's a giant clump of enemies, or the assault boost just is a bad idea, there are big rockets on the back come out. And just do this and take less and less damage each time, and this has successfully gotten me an S rank in every single mission, except for the last few I've gotten the final route. So, yeah. And also, the S ranks are just really easy to get. There's only a few that I've had to redo more than once. So I was in general very disappointed with the mission replay to get S ranks. There's no mission 8s or mission 13s of Devil May Cry 5 in here that are gonna where you got to really sit down and learn it and optimize your play and get good and look really cool and stylish. And there's none of that here. It's just do it faster. Don't shoot a lot. Don't take damage. The most boring ways to get increased rank in an action game.
It's almost like, well, I don't like that sort of bland approach, but the fact that there is like this particular one hyper efficient way to do these things is sort of frustrating. Like, the fact that, oh well, you want to kick everything if at all possible. The fact that exists rather than you doing the math of, oh well, what is the most efficient way to fight using ammunition? But no, we're going to just use the kick for everything. Like, that being an option makes that even worse. Like,
Yeah.
if that was not an option, if it was like, oh well, I mean, you need to fire the minimum number of shots, so there you can take the approach of maximally avoiding combat or using like a high risk, high reward weapons where you only need a couple shots to kill anything or whatever, or but if you miss, then you're going to be in deep doo doo because you'll run out of ammo or whatever. Like, there's much more math that you can do, much more sort of debate over the optimal strategy if you don't have like one of these sort of laser optimal approaches. And it's the same type of issue really as with the songbird, in that, well, there's just this one thing that floats to the top and there's not really any argument to be had at that point.
Yeah. In a way,
Like,
it's
if the songbird was structured in such a way that it fundamentally made it impossible to get a decent mission ranking, then maybe it wouldn't be so bad.
yeah. Most people will take the even easier route than I have. Well, they'll get reverse jointed legs. I've since looked up how people handle it because this is the strat I came up with on my own, and this is not the meta strat for S ranking missions. The correct method of S ranking missions, according to the community, is LOL Songbird. Like I had to come up with the kick him in the face strategy, but the because the community just uses the Songbird, just all Songbird all the time, all day, every day. They get reverse jointed legs to get the higher hop and the lighter weight, and they just slap on two songbirds. And surprisingly, they go with the total brain dead route instead of the what I think would be the easier route. They just get the build that doesn't have to think, where they do this with the heaviest reverse jointed legs and dual wield two machine guns with the songbird. They have a rapid fire medium range weapon and two infinite range or any range double exploding grenade launchers, all on a medium frame, so they can zip around the map at super energy efficiency because they're not technically heavyweight. It's really dumb, but I don't feel too bad about using the kick him in the face strat because it's not the songbird, and I did have to come up with it on my own through experimentation. Now, once I found it, it was very clearly the optimal way to do things if you're not using the songbird. But for me personally, because I didn't go look it up, I'll take my S ranks as an achievement because I still had to find the way to do it. It doesn't diminish my personal satisfaction for cracking the S rank code at least, because I didn't look up the kick him in the face strat. That is a patented Ari strat. I have seen people using it in after I went and tried to look it up later. It is a popular strat that people gravitate towards if they don't want to use the songbird, but it is only for people that don't want to use the songbird.
Yeah, I don't really like when there's a spoiler item in there, and that I know that the argument is just, well, just don't use it. Well, if you want your game to have longevity, then you sort of need there to be debate over the best way to play it. If it's just, if there's an obvious straight line through in a game, then it's just never going to generate a long-term community. Like, hopefully FromSoft decide that they need to, intervene in this and adjust some of the numbers a little bit to keep keep at least a few major strats competitive with each other, rather than everything refining down to songbird.
Yeah, it is. Every if you see two songbirds on a build, it doesn't matter what they say about their build. The core part of their build is those songbirds.
Yeah, so the rest of it is largely irrelevant because you've got the game breaker already attached.
Yeah. So I've gone out of my way not to do it. If you want to see some of my mech builds, I can post them. I posted my current go to mech. Uh, the double shotgun, double rocket, quad legged monstrosity is just a good. Even if you don't want to do the kick him in the face strat, double shotguns is really strong. It does a ton of break damage, and if you can get to a lightweight mech and stick him in its throat, you'll break it in a double barrel blast to the face and get him in break state. but you have to catch the lightweight mech first, and you have to land both the shotgun shots. But if you can do it, and you with a little bit of practice, you can do it. You can make it happen, not on command, but regularly enough, and it makes it still feel fairly rewarding.
Yeah, I'm sure that there will be inevitable DLC for it,
Hopefully,
but yeah, I just hope that they don't do something retarded like try and power creep the songbird.
yeah, that would be really dumb. Although there's a lot of busted weapons in New Game Plus that just look insane on the preview window that I haven't tried yet. I tried to experiment with a lot of them, but there's a ton of weapons in that video game, man.
I mean, that's the way you want it to be, really. Like, I regret the small amount of time that I spent with Elden Ring, but one of the reasons that I do regret it is that the sheer amount of different weapons and strategies in that game is kind of mind-boggling. Like, I expected that they would get lazy and give up after a point much sooner than they actually did, as far as coming up with creative weapons.
Yeah, you'll find you'll start to find them falling into patterns about 40 hours into the game. Is when they run out of unique ideas.
It's, about 3 times the length of your average modern game. Then they start running out of ideas.
Yeah, about that point, you'll get a few unique cheesy prayers and the occasional gimmick weapon. But until that point, you can pretty much find unique weapons that at least have the different property of significance in some part of it, all the way through the first 40 hours. And even then, at the tail end of the game, they bring it all back and keep a few in reserve for that piece, so that the last few areas have some cool unique stuff in them too.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope that they build on what they've got with Armored Core 6 and don't sort of just rest on their laurels. Which is not to say that I like the whole DLC paradigm, but what I'm mainly saying is that they try and expand the latitude of what you can reasonably hope to do in the game without just trying to power creep what's currently in there. Like, you need to keep a sort of like a competitive environment, and currently it doesn't really seem like they have. It seems that they've got the game structure, like the basics of the game structure are down. That will make sense, but the ranking system does not really seem to encourage anything other than finding like the lowest common denominator way to hit S. Like, I think that you would have been better off rather than that, just having sort of a score attack system or something.
Yeah, that would have been better. You can have
Because that way you could have bonuses for, well, okay, so you didn't get through as fast as this person, but you did this other thing differently that has a bonus attached to it, or
you
like
fulfilled all the bonus objectives in the mission. You killed X number of enemies, stuff
yeah,
like that.
like there are more interesting ways of doing it, and the oh well, you kicked everything in the face in a short enough amount of time, therefore S is about the most boring way you could do it.
Yeah, I hope there's no PvP achievement. If there are PvP achievements, I'm putting a signal jammer in both of my main hand weapon slots and just running the same rocket launchers I run on my quad mech right now. Then what the signal jammer does is it turns off lock on, so the songbird becomes useless. It does no
Because you
damage.
know that if there's PvP people showing up, they're all gonna have double songbirds.
Yep. And if they get hit by the signal jammer, the songbird is useless because it relies on lock on. It completely kills your targeting assist and your lock on if you're hit by it, but it does 0 damage. I will run 2 of those and sacrifice main hand weapons entirely just to dunk on the songbird people, and I will kick them in the face
The songbird
repeatedly.
people will be all of the people. Like, I think that for like 99.99% of people who like PvP brain will compel them to use the songbird.
Yeah. It will be a bit harder in PvP because you can't abuse the blast radius as easily as you can against the computer. Because the problem with the songbird in PvE against LCs, or other ACs, other armored cores, when the NPCs are controlling them, even the mini boss ones, they're programmed to do a quick dodge as soon as a slow projectile is coming at them. And even though the Songbird's projectile travels relatively quickly, like it's going to get there pretty fast, the game still treats it as a slow projectile that has to travel on the screen. So it's going to prompt the enemy AC to dodge. But the dodge doesn't go, never ever goes far enough to get it out of the blast radius. And the blast radius has very, very little damage drop off. So in
Yeah.
online, if you can get in the air and keep moving and stay in the air, it'll be a lot harder for them to abuse the Songbird.
Yeah, I think that if they had gotten out ahead of it, they could have killed the popularity of a game breaker like that. Like all you would need to do is like introduce one enemy type that can shoot down the projectile as it's leaving the barrel, so the explosion goes off in your face if you try and use it on them. And suddenly there's going to be at least one situation where just spamming Songbird is not going to solve the problem for you. Like there are lots of ways that you can solve this problem, but they have to see it as a problem worth solving first.
Right.
And the reality is that the weight of conversation surrounding this game is divided into two: people who say the Songbird is the only way to do anything, and people who are just screaming about the game in general because they got filtered by the helicopter.
Yeah, so I'm going to try a thing with OBS, so bear with me just a microsec here. You're going to, I gotta let Armored Core behave itself, because I'm running the rig now. So I'm going to move the mic so my sound quality is going to drop a little bit. And I'm going to demonstrate this to you. So, I'm not going to try to stream it to Vaul at the same, well, I can try. I don't think it's going to work, but
And I don't think your computer will. I mean, you don't think your network will handle it. It will probably cry.
yeah, so I'm going to just flip to a display capture. And we're going to capture monitor 1 because I don't have this preset up and I'm doing this in real time. Don't capture my cursor. Right. So I'm going to open the volume mixer and I'm going to kill
I've got our stream up on my monitor so I can see if this works from my end.
So we're just gonna boot this up. I'm going to go to my AC, go into assembly. I'm going to change my ear shots to Songbirds.
Online multiplayer manners.
So literally the only changes I'm gonna make, I'm gonna change my ear shots into Songbirds, and I'm gonna show you how stupid this is. Actually, let's make this harder. So let's get a lighter mech that I have saved here, and let's go to assembly. Let's get Songbird. Okay. Oh, weapons. Do I have a quick thing? Okay, dual shotguns. Okay. So we're gonna take this. We're gonna go to replay mission. We're gonna pick a mission that has at least it just loads right into a few AC fights. Okay. So let's go to not attack the old state fort. Okay. No, not that one. This one. So this one has three AC fights in it. And don't worry about story stuff in this game. It's pretty hard to tell what's going on out of context. And the story ain't particularly great to begin with. That's why I haven't talked about it. So I'm going to turn on target assist as soon as I load the game. I'm going to activate my boost. And we're going to fly to the mission objective over here. This is just kill 2 enemy ACs, and then a third one will spawn that we got to kill. That's the whole mission. So I'm going to show you how easy this is. So we get to the mission point. Here. And you can see the ACs over there. Just go to this guy. Now, he's a quad leg, so he can hover, and you would think this would help him, but as you're about to see, he's in for a bad time. Oh, look, his shield's gone. Now I can just wait for the Songbirds to come back. And he's stunned. And half his health's gone.
From my point of view, it hasn't happened yet. Still waiting to see.
And he's stunned again, and another half of his health is gone. And he's almost stunned again. And then we can kick him in the face. And another double shot. Whoop. Oh, his buddy's here. Oh, that's okay. We got songbirds. And he's dead.
This is seriously underwhelming to look at.
And look at that. Oh. And more double songbird. Oh, I missed that one for once. And oh, I'm broken. And he's should be dead in the next shotgun shot. There he goes. So yeah, double songbird. Oh, we got the last one coming in. I don't have very much HP left because I'm goofing around with songbird, but trying to show off its damage, but that's okay. I'm deliberately trying not to use my shotguns unless I'm trying to show off the ridiculous damage the freaking songbird does. And there you go. Ta-da! Songbird on a relatively difficult mission of mini boss fights. With me going out of my way to focus on showing what the songbird can do for big damage. And this is supposed to be a relatively difficult mission, and goofing around
That
with the
was really underwhelming. Like,
yeah.
It's like the only things that you did most of the time was fire the songbird and wait for another chance to fire the songbird.
Yeah. So yeah, that's why the songbird is busted.
Like, if like I would be willing to use this if the only thing I was doing was trying to farm cash.
Yeah. So
I wanted like super brain dead, ultra secure strategy.
Yeah. So load back up my my normal mech. And yeah, that's why
and you still got an A out of it.
Yeah, I still got an A. I took a ton of damage because I was sitting there goofing around with the songbird trying to show off his damage, but it's like that. But is there a more normal mission I can show stuff off with not attack the damn complex is this is the mission I used for farming money early on was wall climber.
Destroy the ice worm.
Yeah, we're not playing destroy the ice worm. I have loadouts in my pre-built loadouts just called worm. I have worm and worm quad. So I like the little quad-legged builds, right? Like this one that I use. It's my preferred leg type when I can get away with it. Just because I like being able to hover. Lets me do dumb crap like this. So I have a different type of explosive weapon. It's still an explosive big kaboom shoulder weapon, but the explosion is much bigger. It is single shot, and the cooldown is 12 seconds. So I cannot just spam it like the songbird. Face. Artillery up there. I've done this mission so many times I could do it in my sleep. But yeah, this is a more normal mission. So here, oops, I accidentally shot locked on the wrong thing. Ah, kick in the face. Oh man, these early game, even though it's a heavy mech in the early game, it has no HP. So yeah, this is more like what a normal mission goes like. I already know where all the objectives are, so I don't have to wander around and kill all the stuff and go hunting for data logs. So I can just beeline it straight through the mission. And this is pretty much the whole game. But figuring out how to get to this point and building a mech that can do all this is still a lot of fun. And the game has about the right lifespan for getting you through to the point where okay, I've pretty much figured everything out. I think it's a good length for that, even though the game does feel a little bit on the shorter end. It still feels like it's a good length. So up here.
Well, I mean, you're also distorted by your experience of playing a video game is not the same as most people's experience of playing a video game. The intensity with which you focus on a game is far above what the average person will bother with.
Yeah. So I do like to just sit down and get something mastered for a short amount of time and really immerse myself in it, and then move on to the next thing. It's the way I've done everything and played video games forever. So I did that with Armored Core as well. Hey, we get Rusty. I love Rusty. Rusty for this boss. Boss is a weird one. You have to have Rusty distract him and then shoot it in the back. But it's a really easy boss because you have Rusty just sit here and distract it. So this is why I use this mission to farm. Because it gives you the full payout of a full mission plus boss for the early game. But you have Rusty for the first part of it. So Rusty just distracts the boss the whole time, and you can do that. This boss actually blocks a lot of people before they have heavy weaponry or know how to really pilot their mech and stay behind it and manage their energy. He's I saw Razorfist get stuck on this boss for like an hour and a half. But now he did take me quite a while my first attempt because I just could not steer my mech correctly and drive it right. And learning to pilot the mech is a big part of what's going to make you better at this game and make stuff that seemed ridiculous really trivial, like in most games. But yeah, see, S rank, and I just zipped 2 objectives as fast as I could, kicked as many times as I could, and abused my weapon or fired my weapons as little as possible. Well, I fired quite a bit that time because I was just trying to show the game more than anything. But yeah, okay, we can turn off the monitor display now. Back to Final Fantasy. But that's Armored Core. So I'll have it beaten by next week. My opinions won't change though. I'll just I probably won't even have any wrap up thoughts on it. So I think that's about all the discussion of Armored Core you're going to get from me. So, you got anything to ask or add before we move on?
Not really. I mean, I intend to eventually play it myself. I just don't know when that will be because I don't have enough free time to finish it in the span of time before Fate Samurai Remnant comes out, and I stop paying attention at all to it. So rather than have it end up in the same basket as Elden Ring, where something stops me from playing it anymore, I'd rather just delay, and I'll pick it up later. Maybe it will be a little bit discounted in Christmas sale or something, because although it is going to be the whole of the month before Fate Samurai Remnant comes out, I don't know how much time I'll have to play though, because of us having some hiring issues and so on. That's always the case. If I wasn't the manager, then I probably wouldn't care. I would just buy it and play it because I would have more time. But now I'm the manager. Don't become the manager, people. Don't become in charge of lots of people. It's a huge nuisance. It's not worth it. Maybe one day it will get to the point where it's worth it, but I'm pretty sure corporate will prevent that from ever happening. But yeah, so toward the end of September, Fate Samurai Remnant comes out, and then toward the end of October, Cry Machina comes out, which are the 2 games that I've been looking forward to this year. So, yeah, not really sure exactly where I'm going to find the time to play them, but yeah.
Yep.
I intend to play Armored Core, but, you know, it's... I don't know how much money's worth I'll get out of it, since there's lots of things I want to do. And when is the next patch for Final Fantasy 14 coming out? It's October, early October, isn't it?
That's what people are guessing. Yeah,
Yeah.
we got a bit.
I mean, their schedule is usually pretty predictable, give or take a week. So those estimates usually come out okay. So yeah, there's actually in the back end of this year, there's actually quite a bit of stuff to do, video games wise, compared to the desert of earlier in the year.
Yeah. So yeah, Armored Core. I guess I'll give you final recommendations. Um, if you can avoid Gamer Brain with the Songbird and like everything else about the game that it has to offer, and don't mind uh the way the S ranking is set up, go ahead and buy. It's worth the $60. It's worth the full price purchase. Story's not great, but the gameplay more than makes up for it.
I don't think anybody plays Armored Core for the story.
Yeah, it's an incredibly boring story about not sentient, not oil, on this one planet that is very flammable.
I see,
The oil is alive.
but it's flammable, so I don't see how that matters.
Yeah, the first ending you get, you light it on fire. You get the bad ending of the game is you're just like, yeah, it is flammable. How about that? So that's
yeah.
that's that.
I mean, I don't know when I play it, because usually most of my playtime that I have available is also time that Ari is around. So I'd rather play something 2-player most of the time than single-player games. It's just why I just don't get much single-player game playing done these days, which is why I've made so little progress through Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because I only play single-player games when Ari's not around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess a lot of people are going to disappear into Starfield in a few days' time.
Yeah, I should have.
I'm not one of those people because I don't have it. But
even though
yeah,
I've got a free copy for it, I'm not planning on disappearing into it. It would have to. I'll likely poke at it because it's a Bethesda game at launch and it'll make for fun stories. But I don't plan on getting any kind of invested in this game. It's not my jam.
The early access reports of it have been sort of tentatively positive. Like, how shall I say? The rough consensus is worse than Skyrim, better than Fallout 4, which leaves a pretty broad space. But the interesting thing is the commentariat is pretty unanimous that it's the least buggy Bethesda game ever released, which still leaves a lot of latitude. But
yeah,
it's generally fairly positive on the topic of how stable is this thing when it comes out.
Yeah,
but
it's hard to go lower than the creation engine. So as long as they moved away from that, that'll fix a few problems by itself.
They didn't, though, as far as I can tell. It's everything about it looks identical to creation engine.
Oh man,
literally nothing about it that suggests that there's any difference between creation engine and what they're currently using. Like, you can't find any evidence of that at all.
Yeah. Oh man, I've seen a few clips of it and the gameplay, and specifically the dialogue scenes where one character's talking to another, or your character's talking to somebody, and they're just every character in that game has giant lips. It drives me insane.
I don't know what it is about, like, because it's like that with Mass Effect as well, right?
Yeah, it's been a thing with some Western developers lately.
I don't know why. It doesn't make much sense.
Like, I'm sorry, Gaia is the ugliest
gone.
girl in Final Fantasy XIV. There, I said it. And it's all because of her giant lips.
Yeah, well, the thing is that in her case, it's like, at least this is a sort of like a notable character trait of a singular character that is like, she's distinctive. You can say that for her at least. Like, she's not generic player created NPC. I mean, there be people that look like that. It's reasonable to suppose that one of the characters might look like that. It's not like a trait that you see on every second NPC.
Yeah. It also, however, is the dominant character trait when looking at her character design, so much so that if I hadn't had this same lip discussion with Abo earlier this week, I would have called her Lips just now
Yeah.
instead of remembering her real name.
This is the screenshot that I have seen going around the most, though. And we probably cannot really discuss it on the show. This is a conversation persuasion attempt versus a merchant. Attempting to get him to lower his price.
How'd they let that one slip by? That's good.
I don't know. I don't know how that got through. I don't know how it got through.
Oh, that's great.
I don't know how much we can. Well, it's just a screenshot. I know that
Here,
Serithus has seen it as well, so
here's
I'll post it in live show chat,
yeah.
and you can work out by looking at it what we're talking about.
Yeah, just go to live show chat if you want the full interactive experience.
uh, how did that happen? How did that happen? I don't. I'm incredulous. I expect it will be changed. So, for all I know, this is doctored. I don't think it's doctored because I've seen it gone up in multiple places with different appearance. But
How can we describe this to the audio listeners? Ben Shapiro will not be happy.
yeah, probably not. Well, I mean, he's not going to know about it because he doesn't have he lives in a sort of like an isolated bubble where only neocon policy wonks exist, and that's it. So he probably won't hear about it. But
If he did hear about it,
it's hard not to laugh. It's hard not to laugh. Even if you don't think that it's funny, it's hard not to laugh that they managed to get something so brazen through.
yeah. Oh, dearie me.
But yeah, the reports on Starfield have largely been quite good. Um, I think that's also because there's a lot of people who are jonesing for Star Citizen. It hasn't come out, but it's much more Skyrim than Star Citizen, of course. Like, it's not actually free exploration in any real sense, although there's a lot of content. But the main things that I've been hearing is that the main story quest is apparently very, very good for a Bethesda game. Because in Bethesda games, the main story quest is usually complete garbage and everybody ignores it. But apparently in this one, it's quite good by comparison to normal. And a lot of people recommend actually doing it first because they say that the New Game Plus conceit is really interesting. And I've heard people compare it in terms of level of interesting to Nier Automata.
I see.
But I'm not really sure what that means because I haven't played Nier Automata. So I'm just sort of throwing that out there because somebody has said this, and there are people that agree with it.
I see. Well, we'll see. I'm not expecting anything of Starfield. My expectations are so low that we had to start digging.
Yeah, like I'm not in any hurry to play it because I'm happy to wait for some mods to come out, for some patches to come out, for people to recommend certain aspects of it to me, so that I can actually feel like it's something I want to do rather than something I ought to do because everybody else is doing it. And yeah, I'm just not really in any big hurry, especially because when Skyrim came out, it was like the entire household that I was in went into in a Skyrim like trance where for a week everybody did nothing but play Skyrim. Like we
We
didn't do any coursework. We didn't do any coursework. Well, the thing is that while that was true amongst the show hosts, it was also true in my household where I was flatting at the time. Literally everybody in the house, there's like 4 or 5 of us, and we did nothing but play Skyrim. And then at like 11 o'clock or whatever in the evening, we would emerge from from our respective rooms, and we would meet up and we would drive down to the service station or the supermarket or whatever and get energy drinks and snacks, return home and resume playing Skyrim. We did this for like a solid week. We didn't attend any classes or do any work or anything like that. It was just Skyrim. One of the probably the second most unhealthy thing that I've ever done, aside from our leveling for Cataclysm.
Yeah, Zangarmarsh has probably left its scars on us that we can't remember. Yeah. Yeah. I genuinely don't
Anyway,
remember any of that Zangarmarsh. It's just black.
News-wise, there's not really that many major points of news for today. The one that I've seen the most people talking about has probably been gloating over Volition Games closing.
Yeah.
So Volition Games has bounced around ownership a little bit, and eventually came under the ownership of Embracer Group, who have completely shit canned them, and it couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of scumbags.
Yeah, so for those that don't remember, Volition was the company responsible for the travesty that was the Saints Row reboot.
Well, I remember Volition primarily as the company that made Red Faction, because I really enjoyed Red Faction. It was like the first game I got on PS2 back when it had just come out, and I had a great time playing it because I didn't really have any experience playing FPS on consoles at all, and this was like the first time that I'd really done it, and it was a great experience. It was a pretty solidly made game, made the first sort of reasonably extensive use of destructible terrain in that genre and so on. Like it was a pretty solid game. That's what I remember Volition for. However, that was a long time ago now, and basically this most recent project of theirs, the Saints Row reboot, making the once beloved franchise into an utterly repellent franchise and showing absolute contempt for the fans that made Saints Row an IP worth even developing for. Yeah, there are consequences for this. Like, nobody is going to be sad about this, that they got exactly what they deserved. It's as simple as that. Nobody will miss them.
Yeah,
and when you get, and that's the thing that they should be sad about, is that when they are gone, no one will miss them. Like, there's lots of companies that, you know, if FromSoft shut down, they would be sorely missed. Volition is shutting down and nobody will miss them.
Yeah.
Because they've completely managed to offend so many people and shown contempt for so many people and made a game that was so in violation of the cultural norms of what it means to be a game player that there's just nobody's going to care. Like, it's like, well, you made that really bad game that nobody cares about and now you're gone. And as far as I'm concerned, that just means that the development budget that might otherwise go to you might go to somebody who's less scummy. So yeah, it should be sad to work your way into that position.
Yeah.
I'm not really interested in getting involved in the idiotic debate that Razor Fist engages in every single time a company shuts down, which is his
order of operations on woke and broke. Yeah, I hate that too.
Yeah, I think he's really dumb. Like, I don't understand why he's got this enormous blind spot. That the reality is, Razor Fist is a contrarian who likes to mock people who call him a contrarian because it has never occurred to him that he might actually be contrarian. Like, he just assumes everybody is wrong, and that's the like, he's an entertaining guy to watch a lot of the time, but he's incapable of thinking through the theoretical possibility that he is wrong about something. As far as I can tell, he will just simply reframe until he is right. And if that involves creating a distinction without a difference and then making video after video championing it, then he'll do that. And that's what he's done here.
Yeah.
But the reality is, a bunch of worthless woketards made a worthless woketard game. It made no money, and they got shit canned, and everybody's better off for it. And that's all that matters.
Yeah, and even aside from the woke stuff, just to bring it back into the realm of comparison for video games, uh, I'm not a Super Mega Saints Row fan. However, uh, a franchise I love almost had a very similar thing be its death, and that was back when Dino May Cry came out. And I empathize with the Saints Row mega fans. They got to watch what Volition did to their video game. Because I remember Dino. I remember what they
Yeah, and
they
the
did.
attitude was very, very similar. It was just contempt, absolute contempt for the people who liked the franchise before. The fundamental belief that they knew better, they knew what would be better, and the difference being, I think that there is a difference, and I think that the Dino May Cry people come out ahead of it, because the issue is the Dino May Cry people were operating under the delusion that their new reimagined Devil May Cry would sell well and be popular. Like, they actually thought that no, the reason why we need to diss the previous fan base is that fan base is too small, and catering to them will make the game completely impenetrable and inaccessible to anybody else. What they didn't understand was that, number one, what they were making was cancer, and number two, the audience that they were pitching it to didn't exist. Like, that was their misunderstanding. And more to the point, it was a misunderstanding. In the case of New Saints Row, they had no interest whatsoever in whether the market existed. The objective was to desecrate something that people liked because they viewed it as being for chuds or whatever. I don't even know what chud means, but they use it all the time. But
It
yeah,
was it was derogatory
the
terminology for just generic uh, Midwesterner, Southern good old boy.
but yeah, they made that Saints Row to be offensive. They didn't offend a group of people or poke fun at a group of people in the process of making something that they thought would sell well. I do not get the impression from anything that they did that they had thought about whether or not it would sell well. They just assumed that because they were making fun of the right people, they were entitled to success. Because it was definitely a political exercise. You don't have characters constantly bleating about overthrowing capitalism and about carbon footprints and crap. That doesn't happen if you are not a political person making a product for a political reason. And when you are operating on the basis of politics for political reasons, you are not thinking about the market at all. Because that's not what the people who play video games are interested in. Nobody has ever managed to successfully sell a game on the basis of its politics before. Even Disco Elysium, which is all politics, has never managed that. The part of Disco Elysium that people like is the discovery part, not the fact that it's about politics. Like the process of playing the game is still what sells it, even if it's shot through with their politics. But in this case, the basis of everything is politics. Their pitch is politics. They made the entire cast of a game about gangsters. They made all of the gangsters into cringy millennials. And those cringy millennials are personified versions of each of their respective political positions. And that's all. And their political positions are all just different shades of progressive. The entire thing was a sermon offered to the people that the sermon was written to dismiss. Like, how could they have been successful? It was impossible. It was so impossible that the only conclusion remaining is that success was never really thought about. It was believed by the people involved that they were entitled to doing it. Like, we'll do this and we'll be successful because we're right. Not because our product is any good, not because there's a market for it, but because we're right. And that sort of like very ridiculously simplified version of reality is the reality in which most of these types of people live. Because they've never had to struggle for anything in their lives. Maybe they will have to now because they've just lost their jobs.
Yep. It's I don't have a whole lot to add to it because other than the Dino May Cry comparison, it's just this stuff at the especially when you do it to an established IP that people already love, you're not this is the inevitable conclusion. It's too radical a
I
change
mean,
for the wrong reasons, and you're not replacing it with something that's better or as good. You can't when your focus
well,
isn't the
in the
gameplay.
in the Dino May Cry in the Dino May Cry situation, like I can envision a world in which a corporate suit sees classic Devil May Cry and Dino May Cry as the same thing. Because it's just edgy action combat, right? It's edgy action combat. They don't see the difference between the slightly overblown rock opera style that is classic Devil May Cry and the like generic dark and edgy crawling in my skin game that is Dino May Cry. Like your average corporate suit is going to see them as the same thing, and so the pitch is not going to be unusual to them. In the case of New Saints Row, the Saints Row that they made was the precise polar opposite of classic Saints Row.
Yeah.
Like there's literally nothing in common between the two except the crude armature of the game mechanic. Everything about the attitude and aesthetic is polar opposite. Like they have not. This is why I say that the only purpose behind it was to insult, is because they did not put a different spin on the same IP. They inverted it. They inverted everything about its values and motivations and aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't think I have anything more to add to this one, but I'm glad they got some kind of comeuppance for it.
Speaking of woke people imploding over woke things, the completely obliterated development process for Vampire the Masquerade continues to limp on and has now been transferred from Hardsuit Labs to whatchamacallit, the Chinese Room. The Chinese Room, who are responsible for Amnesia and guilty of Dear Esther. So I'm not 100% sure about how well suited they are to World of Darkness, but like Dear Esther, nobody cares about. Like the only reason people know about Dear Esther is that people keep bringing it up. As far as Amnesia goes, it's quite well regarded as sort of like a waypoint in the development of horror games on PC.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's necessarily regarded as being a standout, but more sort of like an important milestone in that particular genre. But you know, it does show that they can make moody, dark things, which might be helpful. But there's more to Vampire the Masquerade than moody darkness. So I don't know whether they can do it or not. I don't know if Vampire the Masquerade can even be made in the modern day because, like, the original is a cult classic, and it's a cult classic because of the sort of the depth of it and the cheekiness of it in a lot of ways, and there's a lot of things about it, a lot of things that go into it that make it a very very strong experience and a very replayable one. I've never actually finished it because I keep playing part of it and then starting over. But yeah, it was a really strong game, albeit released in a sort of tumultuous way. But I don't see how you can make Vampire the Masquerade in the New World of Darkness, because the New World of Darkness, the one that is the current version of that setting, is all about progressive politics. Like, never mind that the development of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 largely imploded as a byproduct of progressive politics. The whole World of Darkness now is framed in the milieu of social justice politics. I don't think that most of the people who participate in it as a setting to do roleplay in think that way, but the developers and the people who run that world, as it were, that IP, they do think that way. They have made very, very public and published in their source books their opposition to fascism. That has been made very clear.
Oh yeah, me and Vaul
Not
aren't
that,
allowed to play the video game.
yeah, because we're fascists. That is to say, we are slightly to the right of Stalin.
We are slightly to the right of Chairman Mao, therefore we cannot play video game.
Yeah, because they classify everybody as a fascist. Like that has to be one. It has to be like this decade's most overused word. Like last
It's
decade,
up
I think
there.
it was probably racist. Like this decade, it has to be either fascist or transphobe.
Well,
But
just if you take all the phobes in general, I think they might win.
oh well, that's not really fair though. That gives them a lot of bites of the pie.
Yeah,
But
but
yeah,
they
I
seem
think
to be able to
the
roll them
one.
together pretty well, though.
Well, I think that the thing with I don't get so frustrated about the phobes because none of them really meant anything ever. They were all neologisms. They're not real words. Fascism is a real world describing a real philosophy that can be examined and debated on its merits and demerits. Like nobody in the modern era wants to acknowledge them, but fascism has a lot of plus sides in terms of like efficiency, for instance, at getting a thing done. Like if you look at the way governance is done in the modern world, there's a whole bunch of nothing happening most of the time. And fascists are always elected. They do not appoint themselves. There seem to be a lot of people under the mistaken impression that otherwise is true. But no, fascists are always elected. They're always the choice of the people. That they want they want this system where this government has a lot of power and they work hand in glove with industry, which is directed explicitly by the state for the benefit of the state, for strong statehood, strong state identity. And there are problems with fascism because largely in a philosophical sense, fascism represses normal society structure, and that's where most of the problems spring from. Like your conventional society has a nested structure where you've got, well, and from my point of view, I think of it as like you've got the crown at the top, which rules the kingdom, the empire, and then within that you've got your nation states, within that you've got your provinces, within that you've got your cities, within that you've got your communities, and so on. Like there's a nested structure, and each of those subordinate structures has its own personality, right? Like if you want to look at America, which is a severely decayed project, but you can still see the remnants of what it once was, you have this situation where within, say, within the Atlanta metro area, you've got all of these different little chunks of the Atlanta metro area who all identify as being separate communities, right? And outside that, you've got, Georgia broadly, and then you've got the South, and then you've got all these nested identity groups, right? Because the Southerners all sort of identify together in a loose way, but they all recognize each other as being distinct from each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got nested identities, basically, and that's a normal society structure where you've got, the king rules the kingdom from the top, and underneath it you have sequentially nested groups, all having their own identities. The problem with fascism is that it subsumes all of those into one particular identity that is enforced from above. That you are told by the state, this is your identity, and you live in this box now, and this is a superstructure imposed on you from above, and you must behave in this way because you're part of this segment of society, and your position in the pecking order is determined that way. So basically what I'm saying is that fascism is a real philosophy which is mostly co-identical with modern progressivism. Like there's very little difference between the two. They're basically the same thing, which has rendered fascism to be one of the most overused words in this decade. And the reason why I think it's worse than the phobes is because it's being used to mean the precise opposite of what it is, and what it does have is a meaning that defines a very precise thing. The phobes don't mean anything. They're words that you use when you need to fill in a blank space in the conversation when you're trying to denounce somebody.
Well, that's specifically why they drive me so nuts. Is because they don't mean anything, but they get so much playtime.
Yeah, I think that a lie is worse than a meaningless statement. Anyway, yeah, so they've transferred the development of Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 to a developer who is theoretically competent to do it, although their projects are normally not on the sort of scope that the classic cult classic Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines was, but I don't have any faith in the project at all. I don't think it will emerge. Because the only thing they ever do is talk about their vision and talk about their politics. They don't have anything to show for years of development. 2024 release my butt.
Yep.
Right, another thing that's allegedly got a release date. PlayStation is going to have a new peripheral, which is sort of like their new pseudo entry into the portable market, but it's just another handheld streaming device. So they're going to charge 200 US smackers for this thing, and the only thing it does is stream from your PS5 over your Wi-Fi. And I guess that they're releasing it on November 15th because they want to get that sweet holiday sales. But I can't imagine anybody actually buying this as anything other than a curiosity.
Yeah, I don't see the market for this. I don't know how it could exist.
Like, this is like a worse version of the PlayStation TV, if anybody remembers that. Which at least that had the advantage of you could play like Vita games on it and stuff. But it was, if anybody doesn't remember, it was the little tiny PlayStation box that you could stream from a PlayStation 3 to to this little box, which would be connected to another TV in another room. So you could basically use the power of your primary console on another television or whatever. This is basically the same thing, except it's a rather wonky looking handheld device. I'm not really sure what you do with this. Like, how do you use it exactly?
Yeah, and don't they already
Like,
have
what is the use case?
Yeah, if it all it does is stream over Wi-Fi, I don't. Why not just move the PS5?
Yeah, I can understand when you've got a handheld which is able to be played while commuting or whatever, but this is not that thing. This can only be played in your house within Wi-Fi range of your router. Except it's on a tiny screen instead of your main TV screen. I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, I know I've got a really small house, and I spend most of my time in my house, in my office, where I've got a very comfortable chair and a very comfortable setup with all of my electronics and all of my communications equipment, and everything is all set up here. Even my work stuff is here if I have to be doing work, which I resent, but you know, it invades your private life if you end up being a manager of something. The use case for this is like in bed, I guess. That's the only thing I can think of. On the toilet. If you absolutely can't stop playing your game and they give you the ability to live switch it to this device so that you can play while sitting on the can, then I guess that's the other use case for it. I mean, I definitely wouldn't give this to a small child because they would definitely break it. It looks really fragile. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it just seems like it's a device without much of a purpose.
Yeah, I don't look at me. I don't have a clue
Like
what the.
when you manufacture something like this, when you develop and manufacture something like this, there's always a minimum number of units that must be moved in order for the project to have been justified. And this seems like one of those projects that is going to be have a real difficulty meeting that minimum requirement.
The audience must think I'm
I
the
don't.
most vain person in the world, by the way, because I've been running around taking GPO screenshots.
Yeah, I can tell. But yeah, I can't understand this thing. Like I think that, November the 15th is pretty much the only time that you could release such a thing, because I don't think that there is any other competing products slated for that time slot, and it'll be a new thing, which is, you know, the people who want to early adopt on the greatest new thing, or like even like people, maybe they're trying to sell it to people who don't actually think about whether or not something has a use case, but it's like, oh well, they've got a PlayStation 5 and this is a $200 peripheral for PlayStation 5 and that sort of slots nicely into Christmas present. Maybe
Yeah.
this thing is just intended to be bought for other people as a Christmas present by people who don't think about whether or not a use case exists. That's all I can think of.
That seems like something somebody in marketing come up with. Or accounting.
Because you have to move a certain number of these things, as I said. If you've developed it, if you've spent the money on the project, and then, you know, the boffins and the product development department have handed you this thing, it's like, now we need to justify how much we spent on this, but it only does these things, then the only thing I can think of is just releasing it in a window where people will just jump on it without thinking very hard.
Yeah.
Because I can't figure out why you would buy one of these for yourself ever.
Yeah.
I guess I don't feel such a strong urge to continue playing console games on my toilet that I need a mobile device to help me do that.
Yeah. So
When I go to bed, I go to bed to sleep. So
I think we're weird about in that, and I can't sleep unless the lights are off and there's no noise being made. But there's a lot of people, all of them complain to me they don't get enough sleep, by the way, that tell me they can't sleep without the TV on or their phone or whatever.
But blue light is bad for your sleep cycle.
All the people that tell me that this is required also tell me they can't get any sleep.
Like the wavelengths of light that your eyes receive have a surprisingly profound influence on your biorhythms. Looking at your phone before bed is going to crap all over your sleep.
Yeah, I don't know anything about the biology of it, but if you're going, I think the more practical case of it is if you're taking your phone to bed, you're going to get distracted and stay up way later than you meant to.
Yeah, you're going to doom scroll until 3 a.m.
Yeah, so I just if my phone enters my bedroom, it is because somebody might call me during my midday sleep if I'm doing 2 sleeps during the day instead of one big one in the evening. But otherwise, the bedroom has a bed in it. It has a TV, but it's not plugged in.
Yeah, I don't really even read before bed very much anymore because by the time bedtime comes around, I don't have time to do anything but go to sleep. So I go to bed and then I go to sleep. Yeah. And that's what it's for, right?
Yeah, I have to find a way to cram 6 to 8 hours of sleep in the day somewhere, whether that's in 1 or 2 chunks. So when I go to bed, I go to bed, and by going to bed properly like that, and shutting the lights off and not distracting myself, I can fall asleep really fast most nights. Just something about having a place that your brain associates with. When I am here, it is sleepy time. Makes it way easier to go to sleep. And you just don't associate anything else but sleepy time with that space.
Yeah, I've gotten much better at falling asleep ever since I stopped doing anything but sleep in my bedroom. Well, technically speaking, I also do my praying in my bedroom, but it's in a different part of the room. But yeah, like I just don't do other things in bed now other than sleep. So when I lie down in my bed, my body's like, yeah, sleep time now.
Yep. I'll have some fantasy about the fall of a certain government that we might talk about in MPP one in the coming week or two. And let that shitty fantasy play out before I can even get to Act 2, I'm asleep. Takes like 2 minutes. TLDR, this has been a PSA from your local No Excuses. Don't take your phones to bed. Bad for you.
It's bad for you. Everybody knows the proper place for a phone is on the bathroom.
Yeah, my can breaks have extended significantly ever since the invention of the smartphone.
Maybe once you get now that you've got a faster one, they'll get shorter again.
Yeah, well, I couldn't. They've actually gotten shorter because I can't load Blue Archive. Pinecone used to be my can game, but they took that away from me, and Blue Archive couldn't load on my phone.
Never forget. what they took from you.
So my new phone's not actually here yet. It won't be here till Tuesday. I had set it to be delivered on Friday, but because it's an Apple product, they need a signature for it. And my
Right.
dad was supposed to be at the house, and he was working from home that day, but he said he didn't hear the doorbell ring or a knock at the door, which is odd because his office is literally right next to the front door. So I think the delivery
My
man just lied.
experience, couriers, in my experience, couriers lie like a rug. Like
Yeah.
it's pretty common for them to not deliver. Like I have actually been home and seen them pull up, put a card to call in the mailbox, and then drive off without ever knocking on the door.
Yep.
Because my my entrance to my house is it goes out, opens out onto a deck, and the deck is slightly higher, and there's a fence around it, so I can sort of see out, but they can't see in from road level. So I can tell if they shove something in the mailbox that they're doing that without them being able to tell that I'm there. And I've seen that that's definitely what they do. They shove oh, there was no one home into the mailbox, even if you're there. They don't care. They just, because there's no penalty for them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
They're it's you'd have to catch them in the act like that. Yeah, I know. And I have to work with freight companies all the time. I know they're bold-faced liars. Freight companies are the biggest pain in my butt because they'll just lie to you.
Yeah, it's been a huge pain in the butt. They delivered something. They delivered a package to me that was supposed to go to Gribble's Veterinary in the city, and I keep trying to get them to take it away. And every time they drop by to drop something off, I'm like, "Can you take this away? Because it's supposed to go elsewhere than here. You delivered it at the wrong location." They're like, "Oh, I don't have a ticket for it. I can't pick it up." Or, "Oh, that's grade 6 toxic, and I've got food in the back, so I can't carry it." Or, "Oh, excuse 1, excuse 2, excuse 3." Like, customs is going to murder me if they catch me with this on site. I need you to take it away and take it to the people who it actually belongs to. They've always got some excuse though.
Yeah. It's worse this weekend because I bet you dollars to donuts the reason he didn't even bother to ring the doorbell was because it's Memorial Day weekend, and he just wanted to get on his long weekend. I can guarantee you that's what happened because normally when they fail to deliver, the local FedEx has to try again for the next 2 days at least. But it's Memorial Day weekend, so they're closed. It's not Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend. Now I get these two mixed up all the time.
Labor Day is down this end of the year for most countries.
Yeah. So this whatever this weekend is, the U.S. gets basically the whole weekend off. So FedEx is just closed all weekend. So I won't be getting my phone till Tuesday at minimum. But what I have done is I have scotch taped very thoroughly to the front door, the garage door, and I have another one I'm going to tape to the mailbox. A waiver that's pre-signed and notarized to take this, that I can accept the stupid package and to leave it by the front door. And I know these people hate that. It's a handwritten form. That means they gotta take it home and do data entry. Oh, just a little bit of inconvenience for them being a pain in the butt in my life makes me happy. I probably shouldn't be happy about that, but I am. That was a tangent and a half. Anyway.
The front page of Niche Gamer is still hypnotic.
If you go to Niche Gamer right now, you're gonna see some vibrations.
Moving on, if at all possible. What's next?
So I just threw one more in here that caught my eye. It's not a big one, but it's one of the logical ends of AI coming to becoming a thing. Big Corpo, the Activision, because of course it's Activision, who's first in line to do this. Will be using real-time in-game voice chat moderation powered by AI to reduce toxicity.
So basically, they mean ban anybody who uses the N word, right?
Yeah, that's what they'll say. That's what they're saying effectively. But we all know what this AI is gonna do. If it doesn't get red pilled like every single AI that came before it,
Well, when they say AI, they don't mean self-learning AI. They just mean an algorithm that has voice prints for the N word
yeah,
and
Well-
the ability to record everything anybody says and turn it into the proper authorities.
yeah, and they're going to make sure you
In
can't.
China.
Yeah, and don't worry, it will be patched to include, questions about any kind of election or questions about
Or
any
any kind of
medical
injection that somebody might need in order to secure their future health and well-being, etc.
yeah, any of that stuff. Let's just go ahead and have the robot muted, and it will spread over time to every center that the every single corpo that has an interest in controlling people touches.
Well, I don't think it will, because I think it will make the entire system unusable and people will move on to Discord instead.
I'm surprised they haven't already.
I mean, these are like Call of Duty lobbies. They're servicing a different clientele, but that clientele use the N-word like punctuation because they're 12, or in Atlanta, or both.
People don't believe me when I say everybody used to say it down here and nobody meant anything by it. And it wasn't until about the 2010s when people started making a big deal about it again that it started to that it became absolutely taboo.
I blame Obama.
I do too.
I think it's convenient to blame Obama for this, and it's probably his fault.
Oh yeah, it was definitely his fault. He catered to the race baiters harder than anyone else on the planet in a position of power and gave them free reign to bring all this stuff back.
I keep seeing commentators talking about how Obama was the unity president and racial division only became a thing again because of Trump.
Those people are stupid. Or those people are
most of them
lying
are
is
enlightened
the
centrists.
Oh yeah, those are stupid. If they're not enlightened centrists, then they're liars. Oh,
But yeah, I think that the sheer quantity of N-words that get said in Call of Duty lobbies, and also bundles of sticks, like they're going to render them completely unusable if they implement such a system. To make sure that their murder simulator lobby is wholesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It be what it be. Anyway, I think that covers all the news topics.
Yep, and we've also been going for like more than 3 hours, or something like that, I think. So we should probably call it quits. And Fern never showed up.
Yep. So, as instead of an email topic of the week, we have a pseudo announcement. We are currently in the planning stage of the next episode of MPP. Either I don't know how long I'm gonna have tonight, but hopefully, sometime this weekend, me and Vaul can sit down and really get some stuff ironed out and get the sources plugged in there, and we can we've got a framework for it put together, and we can start looking at a time to record and produce this and get it out to y'all. It'll be Rumble exclusive because we're talking about a very sensitive topic with YouTube that seems to change its mind on whether it's okay to talk about it or not all the time.
Yeah, we've had previous episodes taken down, and we don't necessarily even know which of the things we said that was offensive was considered offensive enough to YouTube to adjust them.
If a YouTube moderator listened to any of our episodes, the answer would be the whole thing.
Well, YouTube moderators don't usually listen to things. It's just the AI.
Yeah.
It's just the algorithm. But yeah, it's hard to say which thing we got in trouble for. There were so many. But
yeah, we're going to
because
yeah, we're going to say quite a few inflammatory things in this one to the powers that be.
Yeah, we want to cover the recent events, but I am sure that going forward for the next few months, there are going to be a variety of happenings of various kinds.
Yeah. So right now, topics are we're leading with the GOP debate. The big one is the arrest
Well,
of Trump in Fulton
I
County.
don't really want to watch it though, because it's just a bunch
Oh,
of
you don't-
nobodies and has-beens.
You don't have to watch it. The important part is the Tucker interview that we're going to be contrasting it with.
Is that everybody lost except for the guy who didn't attend?
Yeah, that's the important part. I only have the people here to show how far behind they are. So yeah, we'll be going through that very briefly to prime the topic. We'll talk about the arrest in Fulton County of Trump, and as usual, I'll give you my what you can do segment based on where we're at, and I've got a miscellaneous topic section as usual in here, but we'll see how that goes once we get it all put together, and we'll see what topics make the cut and which ones don't, and how long we want this one to be. Right now, it's looking like a maybe 2 to 3 hours tops, but who knows? We might be able to tangent or come up with some new topics.
There's no reason we can't do shorter ones if there are shorter topics while they are still fresh-ish.
Yep. So since we've this is a fairly significant event in Western world history. We're going to both of us want to do a show on it, so we're trying to put something together, and we'll hopefully have that to you hopefully in a couple weeks at most. If we really can get it together and get it put together like tomorrow evening or something, we can try and have it out to you in a week. But we'll just have to see how mine and Vaul's schedules line up.
Yep.
So look for that in the next 1 to 2 weeks, I'll say. I'm not going to make any promises, but that's the tentative release window. Alrighty. You got anything else before I send us out of here?
Nope. Fern, come back. I don't know where you are. Why are you not here?
Yep. Alrighty. Hope you enjoyed me playing with all the screenshot filters instead of us playing Rival Wings in Final Fantasy.
I tried. That first gen was too much for me. I couldn't talk and play that at the same time because it's basically a totally unfamiliar environment to me, which is changing very rapidly.
Yeah, I can help break you into it for a few games after the show if you want. We'll see. And yeah, I think we're done, folks. Hopefully Fern's back next week, although he said he wouldn't be. So oops.
Did he?
Yeah, he said he I think he definitely told us he's doing something next week, so it may be us again.
Good grief.
So
Fern, come back.
So yeah, we'll find something out. We'll play it. We don't know what's happening, so maybe a filler show, maybe a more proper show like this one. We will have to see. Until then, folks, sayonara. Bye-bye.